And we are live. Look at that. That was perfect timing. I timed that.
Yeah.
That?
We're going two.
I said 3, 2, 1, and we are live. So, hey, welcome to FNL, Friday Night Lockdown.
It's FNL. I love it.
Love
FNL.
it.
So tell us what we're talking about tonight, Ken.
Dude, I just wanted to come on here and, first I want to say that I actually saw a young lady, a friend of mine on Facebook that I've known for a little bit, that she lost her best friend to COVID-19 yesterday.
Oh my God.
And it was heartbreaking what she was saying. And what's up, Brian Hess? Hey, if Brian Hess wants to jump in here, you think we should bring him in?
Yeah,
he's a good dude.
He's a good dude, solid dude.
Brian, send me a message on Facebook if you want to jump in. I'll give you the link, man. So, hey, Danielle Rowe, how in the world are you? And I know Danielle already shared this out because that's the way she rolls. She's just like that. She is the most wonderful young lady over in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She shares my stream every single time, instantly. As soon as she comes on, I see it. Danielle Rowe shared your post every time. It's unbelievable.
Hey, Chris, can you share it to my page? Because I went to Ken's and I don't see it, and I want to let my folks know that we're on.
You got to refresh. Just refresh my page.
Here. I'm going to share this as share.
See, if you click share and then write a post, Glenn, you could write a post saying, come and join me on this live stream. If Chris shares it, it won't show up the same. Just saying. So, hey, Jason Alt, there's a buddy of mine here in Ohio, right down the street from me. Mike Scott out in California. He's up in, Brian's putting the kiddos to bed. He can't make it. Jackie Williams, what's up? Robert Starks. Mike Scott is in Sacramento, California. So,
tag you, Glenn. It should show up on your feed.
Oh, okay. I'm in the wrong dang one. I was looking at the wrong thing. See, it says you tagged me, and I won't be able. I have to go in and approve that. So if Glenn has it set up to where he has to approve it, he won't be able to. Like, he'll have to go approve it anyway. So let's talk about what's happening in the world today. Anything new going on in the world? I heard there's some kind of a mass panic.
No, I haven't heard anything. Actually, I've been purposely kind of ignoring the news because no matter where I was going, it seemed like 1 minute it was about one thing and 1 minute it was about another thing. And the information dissonance between the two moments was like, how do you get that stretch? So honestly, I've just been kind of focusing on serving rather than listening to that stuff, because all it does is just get my head in a rabbit hole and I kind of go down. So I just kind of stay away from it. What have they been saying? I'm afraid to ask.
I don't know. I don't watch the news, man, ever. Never, ever. And I've seen all kinds of people share this out already. So thank you. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Ken Walls. I'm the CEO and founder of Client Solution Innovations. We do website development, have done that for a long time. And I'm also a, I don't know. I kind of know a little bit about a lot and not much about a little. Something like that.
You should make that into a country song. A little bit of lightning, not about a little. Went down the face and no, sorry.
Right.
It's Friday night. This is like a the sketch comedy right here.
Yeah, it is. So introduce yourself to everybody in case they don't know who you are.
Go ahead, Chris. I'll be there one sec.
Oh, look at I got the big screen. What's up?
Come on.
Hey, America. It is Christopher Rausch, the No Excuses Coach, here, bringing you unstoppable inspiration, motivation, and education to keep your life kick ass. Glad to be here. Motivational speaker, coach, you name it. I'm there for you. Love to be here. Thank you, guys.
And then we have the one and only Mr. Glenn Morshower in the house.
Hey, guys, I'm privileged to be here with you. I've been here all week, side by side with you, Ken, and now we're doing another Friday night. This will be one of the few things that I will miss when this chapter comes to an end. I mean, we can still do it, but right now there's a special reason why we're coming on live to help a lot of people. I'm an actor. I've been an actor my whole life, but I'm not here as an actor tonight. I'm simply here as a guy with a heart that is full of caring, and we've got a lot of different reactions going on. From person to person, it varies a little bit, anywhere from a little bit to a great deal, and I think it's time for us to to talk tonight. And I'm going to ask the audience. I did forward the link. Thank you, guys. But I'm going to ask the audience if they will chime in a little more, tonight, so that it can be really a dialogue and just not us up here sharing our chronic opinionitis about what we've seen. If that's cool with you, Ken.
I really want that, but I want to say this, that if you think after all of this is over that you're just going back to being a jet setter, flying to LA to do your movies and Atlanta to film The Resident, and you're going to ignore me and not go live with me, I will stalk you. I'm just making that.
You and me both, baby. You and me both.
Making that public right now. So when Glenn goes,
I will be with you right on your side.
You're just peeking in the windows. I think it's Ken again. What do we do? Call the police.
Well, it occurred to me, I appreciate that. It occurred to me that really, I don't know of a more important time, if I can kind of get really on point with something right now. I don't know of a more important time that we've ever had in our history for us to show up, show up as people, to show up. And if you ever thought about bringing it, bring it, now's the time to bring it. Because I think we're really meeting who it is people are in this circumstance. I said to Chris earlier, and I've talked about this for years and years in my program, that there is this thing. I wrote a chapter about it, and the chapter is called The Presentational Self. And there is this thing that we see all too often, where when people meet, they're not sharing their authentic self. So they're not sharing who it is they are. They're sharing who it is they want you to think they are. And then two people build a relationship. They get it underway under false pretenses, right? Because both parties have basically sold an act to get the other one to purchase the product. And then after a while, it's impossible to keep an act up for an extended period of time. You can do it for a little bit, but after a while, who it is we really are always leaks. I love that expression, leaks. It leaks. And then when we leak out who it is we are, and the other one sees it, or we see their leak, both parties see each other's leak, we look and go, who the hell are you? And the other one says, well, who the hell are you? And that's why these relationships end so quickly, is because when they finally meet, they're usually disenchanted. And if we could just go ahead and leak from the start, I highly recommend leaking from the start. Go ahead and leak who it is you are. And this is such an unparalleled, bullshit-free time that we are in right now. There's really no time for bullshit at all. If in the military,
hey, by the way, I'm implementing a cuss jar. Every time you cuss, you have to drop $100 bill in it. So, sorry, go ahead, keep going.
Well, you're going to be rich by the end of the night with Chris and I on here.
Question about that. What if it is?
Oh, jeez.
Hello, ladies.
Chris, that just cost you $1,000, man. Holy crap! I'm just kidding.
I'm talking to you guys. Kick out America. That's what's up. I took a walk today, and you know how many people smiled and laughed? One person said, "Thank you so much for saying hi to me today." What's up, America? Come on.
Nice.
Well, your turn, Glenn. Sorry.
Well, I'm averaging.
Man, it's a Friday night. I'm ready to go.
I'm averaging this out right now. I did a quick calculation in my mind, and
we all like $2,000.
I was actually going to say that between you and me, this interview is going to run somewhere about $5,000 each.
Yeah.
Okay? So we'll see.
Charity you donating to, Ken? Because
and I actually think it may cost you more than it costs me. We'll see.
Oh, friggin', you think so? No, baby. I can talk real good now.
This is going to be funny. I can't wait. I can't wait for you to use the expression bull crap. I've heard Ken use it a couple of times.
What did I say? I caught one last night right in front of my son. I said, I was ready to say something. And I said Spaceballs or something like that. And she goes, "Ooh, that was a good one." I was ready to say something else. And I said Spaceballs.
Well, if I can jump back into what I was saying earlier, we are at a time that is obviously quite serious. And in the military, if it were in the Navy, they would be sounding a big horn, and the horn would be saying all hands on deck. Yeah, and it wouldn't be saying most hands on deck. It would be saying all hands. And I want to know what that is looking like during this time of all hands on deck. How is that looking for the people that are listening tonight? What are you doing? How have things changed in your life? And, I had this thought tonight, gentlemen, which is so many people are plotting what they're going to do after this period ends. Well, I have a thought about that. While I think that's important, I think it takes a back seat to getting through it. Like the first priority is playing our part in shutting this thing down as expeditiously as we can by following instructions. Because if we don't follow instructions as a people, and it's not like a small group can follow instructions and then it gets better for everyone. But if we follow instructions, then there will be a later on to get back to. I don't think a firefighter in the middle of a fire is planning what they're going to do next weekend. They're fighting the fire because that's the first priority. And it's interesting as I watch, I see so many different handlings of this. And I would ask, and this is kind of a call to action, but I would look directly into the camera and say, what are you doing? What are you personally doing in this time that is making things better? It may not be fixing things, but it's at least in some small or significant measure, it's making things better. You're helping someone, you're helping the situation, right? You're part of the solution as opposed to being part of the problem. And I'd like to hear how people are spending this time other than merely seeing it as an extended vacation, which I know a lot of people are, but this is, rest assured, it's no ordinary vacation, even if you see it as a vacation, because everyone to a lesser or greater extent is dealing with massive sensory deprivation.
Big time.
Things are just way different. And if you don't think they're different, I wonder what your life was like before this happened. And that's not a judgment. I mean, I'm genuinely curious if your life hasn't changed at all in the last 15 days. I'd love to know the underground cave address you live in, because on the planet that I've been residing on, which is Earth and has been for almost 61 years, I've never seen this much change in a short amount of time in my life. And that unquestionably has a trickle-down effect. Everyone to a lesser or greater extent is being affected by this, and most people are being affected rather dramatically. My question to you is, what do we do about this, and how are we making a difference?
Well, may I say something to that?
Yeah.
I'm changing my background. I can't sit in the stuffy Oval Office anymore. So, I think that
I'm gonna change mine.
Look, I told you in a one-on-one conversation that not a lot has changed for me. It's simply because I work from home, and I literally don't leave the house very much at all. I work right here in my office. I get up and walk around the house. If I go exercise, I go stone cold in the Undertaker. Somebody's on Periscope saying we have Stone Cold in the Undertaker. That's awesome.
Oh, I've been called a wrestler before. I can't remember the guy's name, but he had really long hair when I had long hair, and I was like, I'm not that. This kid was convinced I was the wrestler that lived across the street. I was like, no, dude, I'm not. Anyways,
do you need me to come back with a bandana?
Yeah. Well, so for me, I think the one thing that's changed is, for me, I've made new friends, both of you being the new friends, along with many other people. But I've found that because of the business I'm in, I'm constantly, and by the way, Sandy McNichol, thank you for sharing. If you guys could hit those heart buttons, hit some hearts and likes, or some laughing cry faces. I love those. How about the angry faces? If you're really angry with what we're talking about or the situation, man, get mad about it. But so, you know, I mean, I'm in this same position, except for I am busier than I have ever been, ever. Like, I have never been as busy as I've been the last week. It's been insane.
Yeah.
So, Gabby wants to know if you play on The Resident. What's The Resident?
What's
the answer is yes, and I will at this time go ahead and say, and thank you for watching, Gabby. I assume you watched the show.
That's so awesome.
Yay.
Somebody recognized you from The Resident. That's awesome. Wow.
Well, that's wonderful. We
Not
are
24. Brian Hess said he's been doing a binge of 24 here lately.
Oh, good. Well,
he's like, there's some dude in there that looks really familiar to me. He looks a lot like you.
Well,
so, he's a movie star right there. He's a movie star. That's our Californian Southern for you there, Glenn. He's
gotcha.
a movie star. He's a movie star.
Oh, so my husband and I both work from home. Biggest change is keeping my 1-year-old out of daycare and trying to work with a toddler. Oh my God.
You know it, girl. You know it. My 3-year-old is trying my patience. This is awesome. Yeah. But you just got to think about different ways of approaching it with her. I mean, I was sitting there getting upset with my son. He's been bananas, especially the last couple of days. And I started thinking, like, what is he doing and what do I need to do? And I started realizing, like, his complete schedule had got screwed up. I mean, you think about what he was going through before. He would get up at 7 o'clock, get dressed, have a banana, go to daycare, hang out with all his friends, have his breakfast, have his lunch, have his nap time, have his interaction, have his play time. And his conscience was constantly stimulated. And then all of a sudden, boom, then he's like, oh, I get Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And they start wearing on him. And I've seen a change in him. So it's pretty difficult, but I just ask you to hang in there with your kids and just listen to them and play differently with them and just see what you can inspire out of them. But just remember that they too are going through a lot and they can sense a lot from us. So if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, they're going to pick up on it. Even if you're trying to hide it, they can pick up on it. So just have a good time with them. That's what I've been doing.
Joan Anton just wrote in and asked you about CSI. And I want to clarify that, Ken. You remember I told you a few days ago that I played the sheriff on CSI for the first season. So that's my friend Joan, who lives in Pennsylvania, and that's how we met. Is she was a fan of the series, and we met in an online chat room about the series. I came in and answered questions for the fans. You guys just stop it with all these. It's ridiculous. That is not what we're here to talk about. We're here trying to help people.
Air Force One or Black Hawk Down or anything like Supergirl or any of that stuff. Not at all.
No.
I mean, come on.
Truly not.
He will be.
I send my love out, Joan.
Soon.
So let's click on some questions or comments and see if we can address these.
So remember Vegas?
Morshower.
Wow.
Yeah, Vegas we had a huge gathering of all these fans of CSI and it was a hoot. That was many years ago. That was in like the second season of the show.
Wow.
Which was all the way back in 2002. It's tough to believe.
I'm going to say that I'm looking at the phone, and if people were actually giving us hearts, they would show up right now. Nobody's giving us hearts, man. They hate us.
Here, I'll show how it's done.
Well, maybe we need to jack up the level of significance.
Right.
We do. Maybe if we increase the significance of what we're talking about.
I think
Pam Aubrey said, did someone say Supergirl? I'm here.
Woo, baby. Hey, if I could just bring this out to like kind of just out for conversation right away, since we don't really have a jumping off point necessarily. I've been hearing a lot about, and the thing I've been trying to struggle with the most is giving people inspiration that they have to be responsible for their actions now. I'm seeing a lot. Well, I've just binge watched, Netflix for 2 weeks. What am I supposed to do next? What do you guys say about getting people inspired to be creative and resourceful now about what it is that's going to be their next earning potential? I mean, Ken, you have so much experience in business and success, and Glenn, obviously, continuing education and keeping people motivated. How can we take that and help these people who are actually in dire need of, like, hey, I read a post the other day. It was about this girl that she just graduated from college. She had, I can't remember the exact degree, but she's like, the market's going to be flooded. I have to pay my student loans. I don't know what I'm going to do. What do we say to those people that are, college age and whatever, that need to get resourceful, and how can we accentuate that they need to do it now?
Well, and Glenn, I know you have some unbelievable wisdom to drop about this. I want to say one thing about what you're talking about, and that is directly in line with what Rebecca Evans is saying right here. I'm wondering what the effects of all this are going to be on the economy and how long it's going to take for people to actually get back to work, and when, and da. So I am a creative person. I almost said genius. I'm not a creative genius, but I'm creative. I do video stuff. I do Photoshop. I'm really good with Photoshop stuff and all this. And I think that there is an underlying energy, if you would, that people really don't know what's coming. People genuinely, right. And I'm not saying they're paralyzed in fear. It's more, from my perspective, and I was talking to Glenn on the phone earlier, a little bit ago. And I said, my wife, we were talking about her going to the grocery store this morning, and she's like, should I go? And I'm like, I don't know. And I'm like, so we decided that she wasn't going to go this morning, and we need a few things from the store, but we can survive without them. And then we talked again. I said, hey, just get on the app and order them, have them delivered. Well, they can't even deliver them until like the 31st or the 1st of April. So now it's like, oh, we can't wait that long. We're going to have to go. And so a lot of people are wondering, like, what is going to happen? So I think creativity gets a bit paralyzed in that state. Would you agree or disagree? Am I wrong or right?
No, I would definitely agree. And look at what Michael Wheaton just said. TikTok is throwing new millionaires. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's crazy. Yeah. Yep.
I agree.
It's all about resourcefulness. I mean, Chris, you mentioned that right now. And the old adage, which has been around forever, this idea that necessity is the mother of invention. Again, I don't think that's ever revealed itself to be as readily apparent as it has been over the last 2 weeks, because we are doing things now out of necessity. We're being forced into change, and we adjust. Yeah. And people who seem to struggle with adjusting or calling an audible by design are having a harder time during this time. So I think it starts with flexibility. Right. So this probably wasn't, I'm just guessing, and I'm not saying this sarcastically, but I'm guessing that a couple of months ago, this and what's going on currently was not anybody's plan. Right. Any of your viewers that are watching tonight, no one was banking on this on New Year's Eve. This was not their definition of March Madness. They had planned to watch basketball. And instead, we have a very different scenario. And that means we ignite a different game plan. I've got a school that I teach here in Dallas, an acting studio that would have to have shut down, closed the doors if I were inflexible. And I also wasn't knowledgeable about how to teach over the internet for one reason. I've never done it. I've also never needed to do it. And now I have a need because I have two options. Do that or shut the doors. And shutting the doors is not an option, because this is my life's blood, and it's to give and receive, meaning that it's really equal parts of both. So I give to my students, and I am immeasurably blessed by their humanity. I am responsible to be the leader of a really beautiful family that is something that keeps my soul right where I want it to be. I am centered with this. I dreamed about it for years, and I'm unwilling to see it just disappear in a flash. So there are measures we have taken, the first one of which was Ken was tremendously helpful. So the heavens gave me the gift of Ken Walls, and I don't say that lightly. It's sort of like when a need exists, a solution arrives. And I think that happens more often when we tend to subscribe to that theory. I've always believed that there was a solution available, solution, answer, doesn't matter what you call it, but there is help. And I also believe that the purity of our heart, and this is a spiritual and an admitted spiritual belief, that the purity of our heart accelerates that appearance. I want to say it one more time, that the purity of our heart accelerates that appearance. I really believe that life watches us, and I believe that life responds to the vibration. Boy, don't I sound Californian right now, but to the vibration of love. And I've lived it too long to believe otherwise. So what that means is I've got genuine helping on my mind. That sounds like a Willie Nelson song, but I do have helping on my mind, and therefore helpers. How about this, guys? Helpers need helpers. So I'm a helper, and if I get into a jam, life understands that I too will need help, and so a helper comes along to give me a tutorial over the weekend as to how to use Zoom. And because of Ken, I was able to keep the doors open and stay in class this week, although we're doing it apart from one another physically. During these gatherings, we've also changed the phrase social distancing to social connection or social connecting or even socially uniting. But we're actually doing the opposite of distancing. This is a time when we've come together. You know, I've never seen this kind of connection in all of my life. So thank God we're not distancing. I think we should distance physically, but somehow in distancing physically, it is the highest level of love and respect that we can show for humanity. And I am doing the most loving thing I can do by keeping my distance right now. But I don't want to keep my emotional distance. I don't want to keep my spiritual distance. I want to be closer to you than I've ever been with anybody. And hello, Christy. Another example of someone who really gets the concept of being close and clinging tightly to one another right now, albeit not physically.
Yeah. I agree. That's a wrap.
That's not a wrap. Can you highlight some of these that
Robert Starks is a really good friend of mine here in Cincinnati. Says what you're saying is your spirit tells you what you need for the moment if you're connected to it.
Yes. Go ahead, Chris. You address that.
No, 100%. I was going to say that's one thing I've really learned about life in the last year or so, especially since my son's been getting older, is that's what we have is moments. That I've repeated that over and over again. I've had countless hundreds of people reach out to me during this time. And they're like, Chris, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I'm like freaking out about this. I'm freaking out about that. I automatically go back to everything that's working for me. And that is moments. When I'm there having dinner, I'm there having dinner. I'm actually engaged in the moment. I'm really aware of myself being there, as opposed to, we get caught in our head like, what's going to happen next week? And what's going on with my 401k? And I wonder what Susie's doing. I wonder if the guy. You just have to be there in the moment. Just like really focus and like interact with your kids, especially if you have kids. This is an amazing time for you guys to be with them. Be with them. Be with your husband. Be with your kid. Whatever it is, be with them and have these moments. Because when you look back on this, I want you guys not to look back at it and say, oh my God, that was such a horrible experience. We, as a collective panel and the people that have been involved with this of the last couple of weeks, we want you to look back on this and say that was the best thing that could have ever happened to us. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because I've been through some tough shit in my life. Trust me, I could tell you.
That's a $100 bill right there. $100.
I will dance. I will dance for it later. But it's amazing what you do when you're in those moments. It gets you through. It's just like anything else. You wake up and you go, holy crap, it is almost going to be April. A minute ago was February when we just started hearing about this, and think about it. It's going to be April. So those moments, if you are in those moments and those moments are connected together and those moments mean something to you, you're going to get through this stronger than you probably would have if you just focused on the what ifs and all the fears that are probably not going to ever happen. It's just contrived crap in your head.
You know, I think the idea of the future, I think that the future right now has been downsized. That's not a dark thought. What I mean is, in order to be healthy, I think we have to mentally downsize our future. So for me, the future right now and the now, they're really joining hand in hand. My future is this show. And then right after that, my future will include dinner. Right. And I'm not joking about this. I think that we're being invited to incrementalize. I'm not making my plans for a year from now. And the reason is there are too many existing question marks. That doesn't mean don't think about it, but I'm actually prioritizing things and I'm rating this. And let me offer you guys a little acting coaching here. So when you're doing a script, and yes, this applies, it's not an unrelated idea here. But when you do a script, let's say, for example, you're doing a monologue or you've got a long paragraph in a movie, not every line in that paragraph is of equal value. And you could rank them between 1 and 10. And you never have a 1 because if it's a 1, it doesn't even make the script. So it's really not 1 to 10. It's probably like 3 to 10 in terms of does it matter and how much does it matter. So you would rank something as a 3, a 4, here's a 7. Here's a 9. And then every so often you'll spot a 10. And you've got to give it its due. So if, let's say, a parent was telling their child that they didn't have much longer to be here, right, in the world, that would rank as a 10. And that's not a dark thought. I'm just giving you an example. If a doctor walked in and told a patient that they were going to lose an arm or a leg to an amputation, that wouldn't be a 6 or a 7. That would be a 10 ranking moment. So in terms of prioritizing things, there are things that come first. Right now, I'd rank those 10s. And to me, just my view, I'm expressing my opinion. Right now, the 10 that we're in the middle of, we'll call it the 10 at hand, is getting through the period. Then we can get on to the 9s and the 8s is what will we do once we get through it. But the primary objective right now is to minimize, and again, in my view, to minimize the loss of life. That is like my personal first priority. And simultaneously, right after that, is to be connecting with people to help them handle the mental virus aspect of this, because this is coming in waves, right? It's coming in waves. So there's what's going on, and then there's the how we're handling it. And how we're handling it is every bit as important as what is going on, because frankly, how we're handling it is also falls under the heading of what is going on. How we're handling it is also what's going on. And we've got a huge role to play in handling it well, because it's here, and it's here whether we like it or not. And our response is really what's next up on the list of priorities, is what can we do to do our role in having this period not just continue to elongate so that it goes on and on and on because we weren't paying attention to what our best available response was.
Wow, that's a tall question. You want to field that one, Ken? I've got some thoughts, but they're
not really.
They're pretty
I'll say this.
Some of these people just don't give a shit. I went to Home Depot yesterday and I put my mask on and everything, my gloves. I had to go. I had screens that my cat tore through, and I wanted to open my windows and get some fresh air. And I was astonished that aside from having to go in, wait in line for like 2 seconds, every single person in the place, including the employees, did not have masks, did not have gloves. Every customer was walking around like it was a normal day in Riverside, no problem. And here I am looking like a surgical thief that's ready to rob the bank, right? I've got my hat on backwards, my bandana, my mask on. I'm like, gloves. They're like, what's this guy doing? I'm like, I'm just here to get some screens. I was shocked. I'm like, what the fuck? You people don't care? These people are dying. I have a personal friend, Ruben Mata, who I found out yesterday was in the ICU, not breathing on his own. The guy is a fucking stud. He talks and he motivates people from homelessness in Los Angeles and California. The guy's amazing. I got a thing saying that he was in the hospital. I'm like, you guys are just walking around taking life for granted. I mean, come on. That's not being part of the solution. That's being part of the problem, in my opinion.
So I think that, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Robert Stark says 100, a couple hundred there. But he's going to have to get a second mortgage before the show's
Ken,
over.
did I make it through the entirety of my share without owing you money?
You are, I think, yeah, I might owe you money after that. So, I think that from my perspective, this is only my opinion for whatever it's worth. My perspective is I've seen all of these and heard all of these conspiracy theorists and saying the virus is made up. It's definitely not. I mean, it's not. I know people that have it. It's not made up. I know that.
No.
And are there variants of it? I don't know. Does it attack different people or everybody a different way? I don't know. I'm not a physician. However, a good friend of mine that I spent 45 minutes on the phone with yesterday is an ER physician, and he has been for 30 plus years. And he told me that he is afraid to go to work, and like he's afraid to go to work. And he's an ER doctor. He knows. He started explaining the mutation of the virus and the bacteria and the blah, 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 blah. And I said, so doc, what's the solution here? He goes, stay home. Stay home. And Eric Swanson just sent me something, and I've seen this. I've seen this, and I want to bring this up because it is something to talk about. And that is that Eric says Christopher Rausch owes like $2,000 now. That's funny. So I'll take that flaming guitar in lieu of. How about that?
Yeah.
So
let's keep it serious for a minute.
We're talking
stuff here.
So
not my word.
Eric sent me something, and I've seen this actually. That a lot of people that are being tested positive have Advil in their system. They're saying, do not, if you start getting the symptoms, do not take Advil, take acetaminophen, a Tylenol type product with acetaminophen, and not that's, again, I'm not a physician. My doctor buddy did not say that. That's stuff I've seen on the internet. And I mean, if it's on the internet, it has to be true. I'm kidding. So I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. But what I would say is there's definitely a problem. It's not made up. There's a problem. And I don't care how cool you think you are. I don't care how awesome you think you are. I don't care how hard you think you are. And don't go out and spread this crap, man. Just like stop already. Yes. Like, why not err on the side of being a little bit overreactive to this and just stay in for a week or two and like let this thing get out of our system here. Like, what I had some kid post on my stream thing earlier, and he's putting some doctor refuting, saying that it doesn't spread human to human or something, and I'm like, right, man, okay. There's literally we have information overload, and it's like, freaking get through the BS here. Quit. We know there's a problem. Even if part of it is made up, we know there's a problem. People are legitimately dying from this freaking thing, and there's still idiots out acting like they're, hey, I'm entitled to my spring break. I'm a senior in college, and this is my last shot, and I deserve to be there. And it's like, dude, why? No, you don't. You don't. Glenn deserves to be flying to Atlanta to film his TV show. Chris deserves to be out, holding hands with his kids at the park or doing whatever the heck they want to do on playgrounds or whatever, right? I deserve to be. I had to cancel a speaking engagement in Dallas. Another one got canceled. I was speaking at in Rochester, New York, and Eric Swanson canceled his events. Like, Freaking stop being so selfish. You're killing people. Like, seriously.
We would be out having dinner and a movie, our standard Friday night behavior.
Right.
And we look forward, we eat dinner out all the time. And I look forward to our role in it. I also look forward to the waiter's role in it, because having been a waiter at one point in my past, as most actors have been, I remember what it was like to be on that end of it. And there were a lot of wonderful people that came in and dined with me and were incredibly generous. I enjoy being on that end of it where I can be generous to wait staff. I enjoy that exchange. I enjoy being out and alive and plugged in. I have a reason, Ken, why I think this is going on, and it's fairly simple. And I haven't said this to you in all of our talks over the last few weeks. And by the way, if we could invite Christy in, that would be fun if she's still with us, because she may be, you may have to send her the special link.
Christy, send me a chat in Facebook Messenger if you would, Christy, and I want to send you the link. Jump in here with us.
But here is my theory, and it goes back to my mentioning of George Carlin. And without a George Carlin story, I'll just tell you that because you've got new viewers tonight, that he coined the phrase NIMBY, the acronym NIMBY, which stands for Not in My Backyard. So I believe this, and it's one of those things, guys, where I actually wish I were wrong. Have you ever wanted to be wrong about something? Right? You want to be wrong. And I really want to be wrong, but I'm not wrong. And that is that the thing that will change it for the people who are the less conscious and the unconscious, we'll call it that, the less conscious and the unconscious, is there hasn't been enough pain yet. That's what it comes down to. There has not been enough, and I'm talking not about national or international, I'm talking about personal. People who are dialed in can begin to wake up when they see other people's pain, right? Those of us who are operating at a deep level of empathy, we feel the pain of others. So I don't have to know you to feel connected to you. Yeah. I can connected with you. I can connect with the trouble of others in other parts of the world, and then it becomes a concern for me. I don't have to wait until it shows up. NIMBY stands for Not in My Backyard. So I don't just become moved or motivated by it once it shows up in my backyard. And I think that's the problem, because as soon as it becomes personal instead of international or national, there may not be a call to action. When it becomes personal, you watch, it'll be a whole different story. And I don't even want that. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But unfortunately, there is a section of society that's we tend to wake up when we get a 2x4 to the head. And that's a good Texas way to explain it. Until you get a big, thick 2x4 to the head, a lot of times you're just going to keep on doing what you're doing.
And I think, and I want to address a couple of things, if I may. Do you mind if I chime in real quick?
Good, baby. Brother, take the floor, brother.
So
give yourself the close up.
I think, and no, I don't need that. So I think that it's not, and Eric, I love you, bro. I love you, man. But I don't think it's the difference between good and evil people. I think it's the difference between what Glenn was saying, and that's the woke and the unwoke. There are people that in my book, I wrote one of my favorite quotes, and I have no idea where I heard this, but pain is the predecessor of all wisdom, right? It's exactly what you just said. Like, I can say to you, hey, Glenn, don't knock over that hot cup of lemonade. It could cause ants if there's right. Don't. He's like, you're an asshole, Ken. But or I could say, don't touch that burner. It's hot. And what do we do as kids? We don't believe you. We got it. We got to feel it, right? And then you got a screaming kid. Told you it's hot. Don't do that. There's an old Jeff Foxworthy. I love
Jeff. Jeff's a friend of mine. And Ed, are you going to talk about the screwdriver bit?
Well, he talks about, I don't get this. We just had a baby, y'all, and we brought my wife's like, hey, we gotta child-proof the house. And he's like, child-proof the house? What the hell are you talking about? Well, you got these little things in all the light sockets. So he's like, my dad used to hand us a copper penny and say, here, go stick that over there in that plug. That didn't feel good. Don't do that again. He said,
yeah.
Hey, Glenn,
and he leaned in with that accent and he said, I bet you won't do that again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, that's how we learn sometimes. But no, that's absolutely the bottom line, is that the pain has not elevated and escalated to the point where it is getting people's attention. And I happen to believe this: the more conscious you become, the less you will need to be motivated from the outside in. I want to say that again: the more conscious you become, the less you'll need to be motivated from the outside in, because you will be the one determining your own motivation. And you decide how much value to place upon any given moment and what your role is in that, instead of waiting until there's massive urgency and alarms going off all around you. And then you go, holy shit, that's $100. Holy shit, that's $200. There's a fire. There's a fire in the building, you know? And if you had done something about it when you saw the smoke, and that's the thing, there are those who respond to the smell of smoke, right? So that would be the first level, right? Is when you smell a change in the air. The next level would be when you see the smoke. And the last level would be those who wait until they actually see flame to do something about it. And there's a reason that God gave us a nose. There's a reason. And if you don't believe in God, that's fine. Then let me reword it this way and say, there's a reason you have a nose. And one of the reasons you have a nose is to sniff things out, right? Sniff out a circumstance. It's also great as a metaphor. We all are capable. We have this beautiful thing called intuition. We have this thing called being conscious. And when you're conscious, you learn to sniff out. You know, we've all had experiences where you meet someone and something from the get-go feels off. It feels off, and it's not based on something they said. And what we're responding to is energy. And, you know, all we have to do is embrace that aspect of our beingness and allow it to help us, because it is that relationship. If we're in a synchronistic relationship with our core, our very essence, then it will motivate us to make correct decisions. Our epicenter is not in the habit of encouraging us to make bad decisions. The deeper we go, the better we are. But if we don't dig deep, if we don't live in our lives from this place called deep down, I've referenced it all week long. My buddy Kyle Cease talks about it a lot. It's not an original idea, but people for years have been saying, well, I knew it. Oh, really? You did? Where did you know it? Well, I knew it deep down. I knew it deep down. So clearly it gets referenced to so often that there must in fact be this place deep down. And what I'm asking, and yes, I'm passionate, as I always am, but what is going on tonight in the hearts and minds of people that are watching this? What is going on for you deep down? What is not the surface? What's going on deep down? What are you being spoken to about from within, right? What are you being called to action about? Or is it just another weekend in the life of? And all I can say is, if it is, it's a very, very dangerous place to be for the human race. Not just for you, but for the human race. And that's sad.
Wow. Eric Swanson said, actually, beautifully said, by the way, Glenn, I'm just going back and looking through some of the comments. Eric Swanson actually shared, I never have nightmares, but each night for the past 2 weeks, I have been. I mean, that's just a testimonial that we're all going through this together. It's not like any of us on the panel have any secret recipe for getting through this. It's just like I've said before, be in the moment, serve, give, keep yourself distracted positively by reading books and growing yourself. But I'm just going through and looking for any particular question.
I have a secret. Meditate.
I've been trying that. I've actually been listening to Dr. Joe, Dr. Bill and Joe's meditation.
And here's our gal to help us with that. Welcome, Christy Jones.
Christy Jones.
I was trying to create the segue. Did you notice that?
No, I thought it was you just built a beautiful bridge, brother.
Yep.
I just came in and started writing notes.
She's so smart. See, she's the smart one of the bunch. I'm not taking notes. I should be.
I do occasionally when somebody says something smart.
Pages. This is good stuff, you guys.
We're just trying to help. Let's read this. Just be accountable, even when it's ugly. What do you say to that, Christy?
Hey.
That's my good friend Becky. She's awesome. She's awesome.
I guess what comes to me when we're in this situation is how do we get into someone else's world so that it occurs to them that they can be part of the solution. How do we help them see that? So what action would we need to take? So would it be at stores? Like some stores are really limiting. Like I was at last week, Best Buy, people are going, they're outside. So the store's out, everyone's outside and people are getting necessities. So how can that, in a kind of way, we're really encouraging people, even in those places where, maybe they want business.
Can you pull your microphone a little closer?
Yes, let me find where my microphone is. There we go. Can you hear me now? Do you need me to repeat what I was saying? This is once again my son's giving me his headset again, which is so fun.
That's so much better. I was struggling.
Is that better? Do you need me to repeat what I was saying?
Maybe recap it.
So if we're, how can we? I was saying we need to get a look into their world of how can we help them be in a place that they realize that them joining this is they're part of the solution. And it hasn't occurred to them that they need to be part of the solution. And if we're saying unkind things about them, we're not bringing them into, we're not really solving the problem. So how do we solve the problem? How do we get people on board? How do we invite them to start, as Glenn talks about the boat, start getting the water out of the sinking ship or the sinking boat.
Well, stop drilling holes is what I've been talking about.
How do we stop drilling holes? But how do we actually get them helping?
Yeah, it's the great conversion when you assist someone and invite them into that shift from being a hole driller in the base of the boat, in the hull of the boat, to becoming a hole patcher. And that's a consciousness shift, Christy.
Right.
You know that as well as I do.
Yeah.
And it's also an issue of connection. In other words, we live, sadly, a large section of society lives in an every man for himself mindset.
Yes.
Right.
So that's where we're at. How do we shift that? And I mean, what's just coming to me, I love solving problems. Okay, so who do we know that we're checking in with? How can we support them and find out kind of what's going on for them? And as we're all doing that, not just us four here, but finding out where people are at. And if they're finding that people are like, I just, I don't understand this, I'm going crazy. Why are some of those people going out? Some people that I've talked to, they're like, I'm stir crazy, I've got to get out here. So how do we help them with tools so that they understand the value of being home and they feel that they can do it? Is one way.
Again, I think that, everything that I've seen, we live in a neighborhood with sidewalks everywhere. And everything I've seen is like, you go for a walk. If you see somebody, obviously keep your distance away from that person.
Yeah.
But, and if they don't understand, then they're not your people. Just stay away from them. Like, again, the physical distancing is, and I love the way Glenn coined that, kind of like the social connecting and the physical distancing is a great thing. So learn to do that. Pamela Aubrey, I just invited Pam on because she's a Reiki expert and energy healer, and I'd love to have her come on too. And we need more female energy in here as well. So.
I wish I'd have known her about 3 months ago, because I seriously needed someone to come Reiki my front lawn. I had to do it all alone.
I wanted to go back on to that a little bit, but how can we even, just as we're talking to friends, encourage them? Here's some things I'm doing. What are you doing? How can we enroll and keep enrolling people to join? I don't know. It's just a thought.
How do you teach one not to be selfish? That is such a really good question, actually.
And so this is a thought. I'm going to throw it out there, and you don't have to agree with me. But if we're looking at them as selfish, what we're going to see is selfish.
Yeah.
Hey,
And can I piggyback on that, Christy?
Yes, please.
This is in improv comedy. We have a technique called yes and although this is not funny, the yes and rule means I agree with you, and so it's not a veto. A lot of people want to use the word but, which vetoes the previous statement, right? But so-and-so, and then they want to offer the argument against it. I'm offering an and as opposed to a but because I wholeheartedly agree. And now this starts getting really out there. But like you, it's not going to stop me from expressing it because I'm sharing an opinion. Not only is that what we see, but check this out. Energetically, we're actually becoming co-signers. And this is something I've taught my students about a lot. We're sort of co-signing the space for that pattern to continue. In other words, the minute we hold an opinion about someone, and especially when it's in their midst, we're essentially inviting them to participate in that at that time. We're assisting them. That's one of the reasons people need to, from time to time, get away from familiar patterned beliefs, right? And even in Alcoholics Anonymous and so forth, a lot of times part of the healing process is changing the scenery, changing the friends, changing the input, changing the invitations, not only the physical invitations to continue to drink, but specifically the energetic opinions that they will hold. So for example, if a whole group of people see you as a drunk, then it makes it a lot easier to show up that way. And this is why sometimes, honestly, even though I'm a big fan of family, sometimes you have to distance yourself from not only family, but the opinion of family, because the opinion of others can keep you stuck if you don't know how to mentally divorce it. And this is why sometimes, let's say, for example, someone who is known as the chubby kid. I'm just over explaining this, but the chubby kid in junior high school, and they were the chubby kid in high school, and they go off and lose weight. The people who knew them from the chubby period will often continue to hold that thought of them as being chubby, versus if they go and hang out with a new group and that new group showed up after the weight loss, that new group has no evidence whatsoever of the new creature that has been birthed within them. So what this is teaching us is if we hold a dark opinion of someone, it's actually energetically inviting them to continue being that dark person that we're holding the opinion about. Does that make sense?
We're holding them in place.
Yes, we're keeping them sort of pinned against the boards like in a hockey game. It's an emotional and spiritual cross-check to knock them into the boards and hold them bound to that opinion. So in metaphysics, one of the techniques to change that, you said, how do we change that? We change that by beginning to hold a new opinion about someone, and in doing so, invite them into that change.
Yeah.
Right.
And
so we have to see them differently. That's the deal.
And so what do we want? We want everyone to be healthy and safe, right? So then we want to see them in that energy.
Yes.
Right? Like, I like where this is going. This is good because it goes back to energy and how we view people. We can lock people in a vibration, and then they're always going to be that. But
sure. I and I'm sure some of you've heard this story, but I have no idea where I heard it, but a story of a guy that moves into a new little town, and he's walking down the sidewalk in this downtown area, and he sees this old man sitting on a bench, and he walks up and he says, "Hey, I'm new to town. What are the people like in this town?" And the old man says, "Well, what were the people like in the town that you moved from?" And he said, "Oh, everybody was backbiting, stabbing each other in the back. They were just terrible, terrible people." And he said, "Well, I suppose you're going to find the people here are the same way." And then another new guy moves in, walks up to the same old guy, and same conversation, but the guy says, "Oh, the town I came from, everybody was wonderful, helped each other out, loved each other. It was such a wonderful place." He said, "Well, I suppose you're going to find that the people here in this town are the same exact way." So to Christy's point, you do you do tend to attract what you see in people, right? You do.
Yes.
Those people show up in your life.
Yeah. And then we're putting that energy out, and then we're going to be getting that back.
That's
so
right.
We've got to be really careful, I think, what energy we're in every conversation that we have. What is the energy we're putting out? What do we want? How do we invite people into that?
Amen. I agree. Hey, Pam.
Hey, Pam.
Hello.
Hi, Pam.
Hello, everyone.
What's up, girlfriend?
I'm so happy that we're talking about this because I posted a little comment earlier, but I've been thinking about this the last couple of days, and just this idea of inviting people into a particular type of energy. And, you know, as a Reiki practitioner, the idea is that you're sort of flowing an energy out to people, right? You're just like a conduit. But it was kind of the reverse idea almost for me of just envisioning like this energy of love surrounding all of us, and we're all in that space together. And so it was just, to me, that was such a powerful and sort of just inspiring, but also like, I don't know, all encompassing feeling of we are in this together, and we can all be in this space of love, and just holding all of us there was really amazing.
Wow. And I think you're right on track, is that we've got to come from a place of love. Even for the people that aren't, we've got to figure out how, get creative, right? Like, this is a creative bunch. Get really creative. And when we're coming from love, you know, even for the people that aren't, you know, we're saying aren't putting all the safety measures in place, right? How can we bring that and bring them into that circle of love?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there really is no separation anyway, right?
Right.
I mean,
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
This is turning more female, huh?
Yeah.
It is. No, but we need that. We need that.
It's good to have that feminine side in on Earth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about togetherness. I mean, when you look at it, like I've been telling people all day, they've been telling, oh, these people and those people and these people, all these, everybody's putting labels on things. It's like, stop putting labels on things. We are all the same. We're all going through this. Stop putting labels on things.
Yeah. And I really believe there's no place for judgment. There's only place for solutions and getting curious of why are things where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, even the idea of like there being a more feminine energy. I mean, I just love the idea that this is an energy that we can all share, you know, and we've historically thought of things this way, right? It's feminine or it's masculine. And really it's like, no, it's okay if we just share the same energy. You know, it's okay if guys come in and they're like, oh, that's really mushy and I really appreciate it. You know, it's like, that's a good thing, right? Because we want there to be this sense that there really isn't any separation. I mean, we create all these labels and things for us to understand what's around us. You know, it's just our way of kind of organizing things, but it doesn't really mean that, you know, it's anything more than that. I'm
not too masculine to say that I have cried in every movie that Glenn has played in.
As the man who's never seen one episode of 24.
I know. I got to tell you.
Probably cry that too.
You do need to know this. Here's a fun fact, Ken. I've died 44 times.
Oh my God.
44.
Oh
now he's really gonna cry.
No. The most interesting of which was at the hands of Bill Paxton, the late Bill Paxton, and we were actually doing this show. This is the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? The ABC show. And I have played so many generals that, you know, I'm just not interested in playing generals. And the thing that activates my enthusiasm, I've told my agent time and time again, I am done playing generals. I'm sorry, how much?
Everything has
how much to bring my ass out of retirement? and so this show, awesome. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. asked me to play a general, and then I looked at the script and found out that in this, so what incentivized it? Because it truly wasn't the money. What it was Bill Paxton in the episode. And you go back and look at it. It's on Netflix. Bill Paxton reaches into my chest. He reaches into it and grabs my ribs, snaps one in half, pulls it out of my chest, shows it to me, and then stabs me to death with it.
Damn.
That really happened. And it gave Bill and I a chance to work together, the one and only time that we have worked together. And then shortly afterward, Bill died as a result of, surgery on his heart. But Bill Paxton, a fellow Texan, and Bill and I found out that day that something we shared, and this is not to shift gears because I don't want to talk about the new topic, but it is an interesting fact. Bill and I discovered we were very close in age. He was about 2 years older than I am. And we discovered when we were working together doing these scenes that both of us had been in attendance at the John F. Kennedy parade the day Kennedy was assassinated. So Bill had seen him. He had seen him that morning in Fort Worth. And I saw him about an hour and a half to 2 hours later in Dallas. Just an interesting thing because I've never met anyone else who had attended the parade. But yeah, 44 screen deaths, brother, 44. And thank you for crying at each one of them.
Listen, I got to say, though, did you know that 24 is talked about in Entourage? Did you know that?
I'm not surprised. It's talked about all over.
I
would assume they spoke about it favorably.
Hey, they did. It was.
I mean, I can't imagine having ugly things to say about it. It was cutting edge TV and really groundbreaking. And it's something that no matter what, I won't even say it jokingly, I loved being a part of that series. It was a life changer. But this is obviously not about the show, you know.
You were in Twister?
I was not in Twister.
Robert, what are you talking about?
They're probably talking about Bill Paxton. I believe Paxton.
Bill Paxton was,
Yeah, Paxton was in Twister.
Gabby said he's not dead on the Resident yet.
So I wanted to go back a little bit to this energy and tell
Thanks
me
for getting us on track. Thank you.
And Pamela, tell me it's Pamela, correct?
Yes.
I was waiting for the little names, right?
Yeah, you're fine.
Can we
that our
put the
energy
names
in our
in?
body, you know, is that one part of our body's male energy and one part of our body's female energy, right? I'm on track with this, right? And one of the things that I think I've enjoyed in this last 12 days of Ken and Glenn and Christopher doing talks and then us getting to come in and join is that I feel like you gentlemen are such a balanced energy.
Yes.
Does that make sense? You know, so it's been, I was actually telling a friend that it's just so fun to be able to work with men that are so heart-centered and how you're just moving things forward, you know, and supporting this time and encouraging people. But I think it's really because your energies are balanced. You know, you're balanced between the male and the female energy. So that's a compliment.
Thank you. No,
huge compliment, right?
Yeah. We feel it. We all feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a spot on, accurate observation, Christy.
Yep. Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing.
More questions, Ken?
So good job, you guys.
I think that you and I also, you know, we perceive sort of the scientific and, you know, maybe what would be considered more logical or masculine side of energy work too, because when you deal with it every day, that's what you're doing, right? And so I love that there's that balance like you're talking about, you know, and I think that's what makes this work when it's us or anyone, right? I mean, that's kind of the fun of it, is that we all bring it in our own unique ways, and then it shows up in all these creative different forms.
Yeah.
So if I just want to for a moment take control, I'm going to give it back to you, but hey, we came on here to have the listeners, the viewers, any questions, any thoughts, any fears, anything going on that you want to throw out that we can, you know, maybe help with, you know, I'd love to hear some more feedback from people, like what's going on in your world, and your world is your paradigm, right? It's how you're viewing things. So what's going on with you? Is there anything? James Bodwin, my buddy James, said don't kill him on this show.
Ken, yeah, Susan is back with us yet again. Thank you, Susan, for being here. She said the hardest part for me is in order to do this, I have to be alone, and that's hard on depression. Yeah, you know what, Susan? My wife and I were talking about that today. We were talking about. I've got some friends I've been talking to throughout the week that are literally by themselves, and they're by themselves, and they would normally be with their parents who are in assisted living facilities where they cannot get in contact. So not only are they by themselves, but they know that their families are by themselves. And so they're coming to me. They're like, Chris, because I tell them, I said, call me anytime. We'll just talk, if it's 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, just to kind of get you through that moment. And so these guys are hitting me up and they're just feeling alone. They're feeling isolated. They're feeling like what is going to happen? Literally, and I feel blessed to have this experience. And I was talking earlier with Scott Goyette. We were talking I feel guilty sometimes because I am so positive about this, that yes, it is a seriously screwed up situation. Notice I didn't swear because I don't want to be charged anymore.
Nice.
Screwed up is only like $12.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's seriously a fucked up situation. If you look at it like that, it is truly like that. But again, there's so many opportunities to come together and to really look at things from a different aspect and look at it from a heart-centered aspect, like we're talking about. It's not, sit there and people looking at me and they're like, oh, you probably don't cry. You're a tough guy. You probably watch sports. And I'm like, A, I don't watch sports. B, I've never been hunting. C, whatever. And yeah, I cry at the Notebook. So what's your story? But yeah, it's just, you just got to be real. You just got to be vulnerable and just be out there and just help contribute to the solution, like we've been saying, and just wear your heart and try to be the best human that you can be on this planet.
And while I feel for anyone who is alone at this time, no one is entirely alone, meaning there are interactive programs like this that hopefully we can curb some of the pain for those of you who have been dealing with loneliness. Maybe for just a couple of hours when we go and do these live panels, you're feeling, I won't say partnered with, but maybe you at least feel a little less alone. And, there's a saying in the 12-step program, progress, not perfection.
That's
so
right.
if it's less alone, that to me is a victory. And I don't want anyone to feel crippled by the vibration of aloneness. I want you to, talk with us, chime in, tell us what you're feeling. What has being lonely resulted in? What's that like for you emotionally? How can we help? But don't not engage. I'm intentionally using bad English. Don't not engage. Take this time to engage because we're here for this purpose. We're not on here just for giggles. We're actually here to help. I know, the Pam is the newest member on the panel for me to meet, and she just fit right into the mix of the kinds of people that I'm most drawn to, which are heart-centric, caring individuals. This is a panel assembled of those types of folks. And our arms are wide open and wanting to talk with you tonight. And I know this about Chris and Ken, we've been online every single day, most of us multiple times a day, sometimes doing alone lives, and then other times split screen lives, but we're showing up to do our job. And at the end of the day, that's all any of us can be held responsible for, is doing our part.
Yeah. Jeffrey Wolf says, I've been more connected to people this week than the last year. How do I spread that to others and contribute to them getting through this time rather than being consumed by it? I love that question, actually.
Well, I would say it's just like sharing your enthusiasm, Jeff. That's what I've been telling people when I talk to them, when they call me on the phone for the first time. They're like, dude, you're seriously like you are on the camera. And I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm just the same person every single place I go. But, it's just about sharing that enthusiasm and just saying, it really is cool to connect with people from all over the place and just to kind of make the best situation out of this possible. And I found that sharing that enthusiasm has gotten other people to share their enthusiasm. More so is the thing I said the other night was on the Facebook Messenger when I'm connecting with all these new friends. Thank you very much, by the way. Is half the time I'm recording my voice back just to have that additional connection with them, that additional enthusiasm with them, to say, hey, this is really cool. Why don't you connect with other people? Let people hear your voice? It's such an amazing thing to do. So that would be my answer to the question, is to just share that enthusiasm. Just tell them, hey man, it's much better than fucking turning on the news. Sorry, I owe you something. Turning on the news and being miserable about something you cannot control. You cannot control it. You can go out and make a difference in the world with your gift. And that's something I'm just like going to continue to beat my drum on. If you have a gift, go give it. You will feel tremendous. I promise.
So my buddy last week, Earl Browning, broke it down this way. During this time, there's what we can do and there's what we can't do. And I'm wondering if we could slip into a little discussion on the beauty of this time. In other words, what things have emerged for you during this time that specifically would not have emerged during this period? They simply wouldn't have. And I'd like to kind of get that going by telling you something that's quite beautiful. My students, first of all, we've been open here in Dallas for just over 5 years. January was the 5-year mark. And in 5 years, unless I was on set, I've never missed a Monday or Tuesday class. And I have 2 classes each day. They run 6 hours each. So I teach for 12 to 13 hours every Monday and every Tuesday. I promised my students when we opened the door that I would never take off unless I could not be there. I would never just take a day off, because why would you take a day off when it's your soul's life's blood? I love what I do. So now we can't physically meet, and we shouldn't physically meet. So we go to, magically, poof, here comes Ken Walls out of a bottle like a friggin' genie. And he helps me move these classes to online. Now watch how the domino effect works. Because of life gifting me with Ken, not only was I able to teach 4 long classes, but they went not good, they went perfectly. And now that we're online, we're not restricted by things like state lines. So as a result, I have 3 of the primary cast members of The Resident that will be coaching in my classes this week. And the only students that know about it are the ones who are watching this live feed, because I haven't even broken that news. So, for example, the star of the series, someone's got the music on. The star of our series, Matt Zuckery, is the star of The Resident. And Matt is going to start the week out with us, teaching with me online.
Yeah.
He's on lockdown in Los Angeles too. So he can't go anywhere. I can't go anywhere. And yet there we're going to be side by side coaching that class together for 6 hours. It will open with Matt telling his life story, followed by Q&A with the students, and then he's going to join me in directing their monologues. So they get to learn about him personally. Then they get to ask him questions and interact live, and then followed by being directed by him and me together as a team. None of which would be occurring if it weren't for what's going on right now. So that's an example of what are we noticing that is growing from this? Even on a freeway, which is all cement, have you ever noticed some of those beautiful plants that refuse to not express themselves? I mean, it's all cement, and there's going to be this beautiful thing that refuses to notice the freeway. It refuses to notice the traffic. And no matter what's going on, by God, it is going to express itself. So what is going on for you that can be compared with that little bit of green that's shooting out in the middle of a sea of cement?
For me, I got to tell you, first in my business, I have never been busier teaching people how to live stream, how to build an audience, how to do what we're doing now. It's been insane. And that's not number one. Number one is I've connected with some unbelievable people, including Glenn. I'm the first time that Glenn called me, we had already talked or texted. I think we hadn't talked on the phone yet. And I was with my wife, and I went, hey, I got to go. Glenn Morshower's calling me. And she goes, what? I go, Glenn Morshower's calling me right now. I gotta take this. Sorry. So I, got up and got dressed. I'm kidding. So I said, I mean, it blew my mind that I was like getting a call from Glenn, and Glenn and I have talked every single day except
I think every day. Yeah.
Except for Monday and Tuesday when you were teaching.
Because I was teaching. Yeah.
You were out. And James Bodwin just shared my course. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. He's in the course. But so, you know, I've connected with Christy, and Christy's going to be on the show. Pam, I already knew, and I love Pam, but we've connected even deeper because she's been on a few live streams now. Chris Rausch, I've connected with you. You're unbelievable, dude. I love your energy. And I've connected with so many other amazing people that I would not have been connected with. Glenn would have never reached out to me because he didn't even know I existed.
Brother, cool people love to share their cool people.
And Bob Donnell, you know, I connected with Bob, and Bob is the ultimate connector. He's how you and I got connected. Well, I think it goes back to Joe Ingram tried connecting us, and then Bob ended up. I mean, it's just been absolutely unbelievable to me, and I've connected with people on a much deeper level. I'm very much a what do you call a introvert in a lot of ways, right? So I don't get out in public, and I mean, it's not intentional. I don't mind being in public. I work from home, so I'm not out and about seeing people, meeting people a lot. So this has been really cool. Normally when I do live streams, it's me. I'm solo, baby. I don't bring other people on my live stream. So this has been different and Pam knows that. We've been friends for quite a while now. This has been really incredible. It's been life-changing in a good way.
Yeah.
It's also a very high compliment, Ken, because if you do normally fly solo, it means, I'm going to go ahead and interpret this, it means you hold an elevated opinion of any guest you have, because the last thing you want is for someone to come on your show and wind up diluting your message.
And dropping F-bombs and stuff, like, right?
Nobody wants their message watered down. Nobody. No. So if the message you are bringing is pancakes, then you want to find out who are the syrup people in the world that I can have on my show.
That's right.
And it's not about agreement. It's about complimenting one another. You know, we talk about like-mindedness. At no point are syrup and pancakes the same thing. But man, oh man, do they ever go together well. Right? So I think it's about looking for congruency. And that goes back to the discussion I was having with you guys last week about who brought the milk to the margarita.
Yeah.
And then can't even just think from this experience, how are you going to be moving forward having this type of platform? I mean, it just opens up so many unlimited possibilities.
And here's the other thing. If we ever get back to a semblance of normalcy, whatever the heck that means, I know this for a fact. I am 100% positive of this. I will now be able to call my friend Glenn Morshower and say, hey, bro, I'm in Dallas. You want to meet for dinner tonight? And he'd be like, I know he would. Of course he would, right? Yeah. So, and this whole this, and he would probably buy. I'm kidding.
No, that's also true. Are you kidding me?
Maybe only if you watch The Resident.
I would have. What did you say?
I'll buy if you can tell me what happened in the second episode of 24 season 1.
Right. Or watch The Resident.
One more shower could tell you that. He could probably go, well, we were on set. I remember you called me and talked about my readings.
There's always, it's like, and Glenn and I had a really deep talk, and I won't go into some of the stuff I shared with him, but we had a really, really deep talk last night, I think.
Last night was our marathon talk. We went an hour. What did we go? An hour 45?
Yeah, about that. Yeah, on the phone. And
was it live?
No, this was just well, it was live, but it wasn't the public's business.
Late night.
But there's always, because I have had some really tough things happen in life, right? And all of us have. I hate even saying that because everybody's been through the shit, man. Everybody, right? See, I just gave you back $100, Chris. But
it's going to be a while before you fellas are even.
But I mean, like, there's always a silver lining. There is always a silver lining if you look for it. If you're stuck in the muck, if you're stuck, and when I say the muck, if you're stuck about what happened to you when you were 3 or 4 or 5 years old, and you're still carrying all of that into your present moment right now, you are literally just screwing up your future. So, like, get rid of that. Pam talks about the energy. Christy talks about it. I talk about it. I teach how to get rid of that. Like, get rid of that crap that you are carrying with you. And that includes the way you're viewing having to stay home and the coronavirus pandemic and all of that. You've got to get rid of that energy so you can have an amazing life, because everybody can. Everybody can. I'm done. I'll stop.
And so that's a good point too, Ken. And if you don't know, reach out to somebody that does.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Because that's the reason they have it, is that they need support with that. And there's this whole group here are resources in that area. So I'd say get support. Know that you don't have to be there. And
Glenn will talk to you. I promise you that. He will.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you, Joan, for giving me credit. She gave me credit for always picking up the check.
I'm definitely coming to dinner with you then, bro.
I'd like to go back. Oh, go ahead, Pam.
Yeah, no, you go ahead.
You guys are like the two people on the sidewalk.
I wanted to go back a little bit because, there may be some people that really are struggling. And, I work with a lot of clients that have some pretty deep depression. And when you're in that place, it's hard to even move. So I don't want to skim over that. And I thought maybe we can give some ideas and tips around that, because it's so important, because we can talk about how we're connecting, but we have those tools.
Yeah.
Love that.
Okay. I'd like to go fourth.
Okay. Did you want to speak?
No, I mean fourth in number.
Fourth
in line. With Pam.
Pam's up. Pam, go.
Well, I'm going to add on to that a little, and then also add on to what Ken was saying as well. So, and this is kind of circling back a little bit to someone who was saying earlier, what are some things we can do? And so I completely agree with you, Christy, that, when you're in that space and you don't really have the resources or the tools, that it's super important to reach out and to get help, and even if it's just telling someone you need help, so that then they can help direct you, right? If you don't even know where to go. So, but, along those lines too, just, those of us who maybe aren't in that place where we're struggling, we can think about people who are, and what are some little things we can do? Maybe we can just write cards and send them out to some of the long-term care homes. And, I understand, okay, germs can be passed and all those things. But, if we can send them and they can sit for a period of time, and then these people have the opportunity to have some kind of connection, something like that. Little things we can do can be so powerful. But another thing that actually came up for me today in a live I was doing with a friend of mine was what we finally determined might just be a wonderful new greeting. And I know that, Christy, this, will resonate with you, because, of course, we're not shaking hands and we're trying to do this, this distancing, this physical distancing thing. And yet at the same time, we wanted to be able to communicate with people in a way that we're sharing this energy that we're talking about here. And literally, it just came to me, why don't we just put our hand over our heart when we meet someone, like, oh, it's so wonderful to meet you. And, that's something we do kind of naturally anyway, a lot of times, but it just hasn't really become a common greeting. So I think this is a fantastic time in our history to make that a common greeting. If we can't if we have to physically distance right now and we can't physically shake hands, then let's just express ourselves with our hearts instead.
I love it. That's powerful.
Love that.
Even if you think then I start playing, you put your hand here and then you put it out, you're literally I love you.
Yeah.
You just,
Yes. Absolutely.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It is about making that connection because, like I was saying at the top of the hour, I took my wife and my son and my dog for a walk earlier today, and I'm notorious for always saying hi to everybody, and regardless of my looks, sometimes when it's pretty crazy that the kind of the responses I get. But today, once again, keeping our safe distance, of course, because we have my son with us, so way more than 6 feet. But I still say hi to people. And some people weren't saying hi, but this one couple, I swear to God, they just turned around and they were startled. They're like, "Oh my God, thank you for being so nice." And I'm not even making this up. My wife, my son were right there. And I'm like, she said that we're saying hi to people and nobody's saying hi. And I said, that really hurts my heart. I said, I've been involved in some amazing groups over the last couple of weeks, spreading love over the internet and trying to get people to not focus on the news and focus on the fact that we are more the same than we are different. And that breaks my heart that we're not doing that, because when I say hi to most people, they do say hi back. Sometimes it's a begrudgingly hi, but it was just so cool that we can make a difference just by saying hi, just by connecting. Like I said before, using the voice over the messenger, that has been so cool for me, and having the reaction of people saying, "Wow, man, you took the time to talk to me." And it's really cool to hear your voice. Your voice sounds like it does on the podcast. I'm getting people, I'm like, yeah, I'm just the same person. It's not like I'm like on the air, I'm like, "Hey, this is Christopher Rausch." And I get on the phone like, "Hi, how you doing?" But yeah, just spread the love. That's what we need right now. That is my biggest hope out of all of this. And talk about being mushy and vulnerable and everything. My biggest hope is that we come out of this when we were here in the United States, I know this gets broadcast all over the place, but here in the United States after 9/11, there was a camaraderie, there was a unification, there was this solidarity that I will never ever forget. It was like you felt like wearing a flag on your shirt. You're like, yeah, we're all getting along. Yeah, it's not about red and blue. It's not about this or that. It's about we got each other arm in arm. We got this. We're gonna take this, and nobody's gonna bomb us anymore. It's crazy because now I'm not swearing because I think about the stupid swear jar that doesn't even exist. It takes away my passion. God damn it! It's seriously, you have to.
That was $1,000 right there, dude.
Thinking just about yourself. Think about giving them. There's so many people out there. I think so much about the homeless and the people that are by themselves. There is such an opportunity to go out there, and just like we've said before, give your gift. Get out of the moment, get out of your head, get out of the future, and whatever it is that you could possibly do is give your gift and share that love. That's what we're doing.
And if we can add a little bit more to that, so if somebody is struggling, like getting outside, and you were talking about this in your podcast earlier, Christopher, get outside barefoot, right? Grounding is so important. Your connection with the earth, the sun shining on your skin, 10 minutes outside barefoot, and just start telling you love everything. I love that tree. I love the grass. I love the flowers. Like I being in that place where I'm grateful for this, feeling the sunshine and just going, I'm grateful for the sun shining on me and feeling that. But it can be a step when you are home that you can get outside barefoot, get that energy. So it's starting to raise your energy too. And so we know gratitude is a huge practice, and then thinking not only for ourselves, like you were saying, how do we then move it towards how can I do something for someone else today? And we're moving into that place, which raises our feel-good chemicals in our body, right? So those are a couple simple things. Another one is changing the energy in your body. So getting some type of movement. There's still so many different types of exercises. There's so many free videos online. But the more you can move your body, when you can change the energy in your body, it really helps to change what's going on in your head. So especially if you can move your body outside, right, is really important.
I have this hope, Christy, that's so beautiful. I have this desire, this hope for humankind in terms of our emergence from this, that when all is said and done and the dust has settled, my centralized hope is that we will emerge having a full-blown remembrance of who it is not only we are, but who it is we were all along. All along, not only during this period, but before, because so often our identities wind up with most people, it seems anyway, and it's not a judgment, this is an observation. And I believe there's a big difference between a judgment and an observation. Yeah. I have made this observation for many, many years, that people identify who it is they are by what it is they do or by what it is they have. And this period has reminded us that you're not your car, you're not your house, you're not your bank account, you're not your title, right? Because the virus has been, really not playing favorites with regard to who it could strike at any point in time. And there's something very sobering about that. There is a teaching in metaphysics, and I've shared it this week, but I want to share it again tonight because there are a lot of people that are new that are watching it or will be watching this on replay. And here is the saying. The saying is this: we are not what we do. For if we are what we do, then when we don't, we're not. And it's a little tricky, so I want to repeat that. We are not what we do. For if we are what we do, then when we don't, we're not. So for example, who I am is not an actor. Because if I decide that that's who I am, that's not who I am. That's what I do. It's not who I am. If someone says, "Tell me about you," I don't say, "Well, I'm an actor." That's what I do. So to explain this perfectly, if I decide that being an actor is who I am, well, right now I'm not being an actor. Right now I'm unemployed. So that means that what I used to affirm myself as being and align myself with and define myself by, when I'm not doing it, then I'm basically out of luck because I'm not an actor right now. So then I guess that means I'm nobody. So I have a much stronger identity than that. And my identity is that I'm an unrepeatable miracle in time, but not more so than anyone else. And I've been teaching this for years, that is the opinion that I hold of myself. I see myself as a beautiful miracle and an unrepeatable event that's never been, never is other than through me, and won't ever be throughout history. Or I mean, in the future, there will never be another one like me. However, where this keeps from being narcissism is I happen to hold the same opinion of you. I hold it of everyone on that panel. I hold it of everybody in the world. Every person in this world is a frigging event. But here's the but. The but is not everyone is participating in the matter of their own life as if it were the event that it in fact is. And that's what varies from person to person. Every person we meet is a diamond, but buried in a rubble of pain or bullshit. There's my $100, Ken. And so if I just find that if we hose each other down, right? I mean, really, if we were to take an emotional, and I'm speaking metaphorically, if we were to take a metaphorical fire hose and spray the crud off of one another, we would get down to the beautiful diamonds within. We would get down to what really was going on all along. And so there is this hidden treasure that I know for a fact from 60, almost 1 years of experience, that there is this beautiful treasure that exists at the epicenter of everybody. And there are no exceptions. And the only difference is the level of crust on the outer shell. That's the only difference. Within, we're identical. We're all just the truth. And so this is a time where I'm hoping people will drill deep and remember who it is they are, and frankly, who it is they've been all along.
Thank you.
We emerge. It will change the way we emerge.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm eating pretzel sticks, but I'm telling you, these
David. Thank you. Addicting. He's a friend of mine.
Yeah. And I think
that's would you real fast. I'm sorry, Christy. Glenn, repeat that one more time.
You're talking about the metaphysical teaching?
The you are not
the story.
Who you are. Who you are. I am.
No, it's we are not is the way it opens. We are not what we do.
Okay.
For if we are what we do, then when we don't, we're not. I'll say it one more time. We are not what we do. For if we are what we do, then when we don't, we're not. Beautiful. So it's important that we define ourselves by that which is eternal, right? Whatever that is. That's not even a spiritual discussion. It certainly can be. But in other words, let's define ourselves. Let me use a different word than eternal. Let's define ourselves by the things that are ever present. Let's define ourselves by that which is constant, right? Which is spirit, and not by things that are fleeting. Because as soon as we connect with that which is fleeting, it goes, then here's the problem. So do we. So do we. If we attach, that's why it's dangerous to attach yourself with youth. It's dangerous to attach yourself with beauty, because those are things that are fleeting. And if they go, and I've known many people like this in my life, where they were really attached to the physicality of being 20 and 30. And then what happens is they start chasing that later in life and trying to find ways to look like the age they're not. Right? So they're chasing down what has already left. Now, the youthfulness of spirit, that never needs to go away, but there's no way I'm ever going to be cast in a movie as a 25-year-old man ever again, no matter what. No matter how good the makeup is, those days have done set sail.
Yep.
You just don't want to connect. That's why you're also not your bank account. And we know this because if you are your bank account and your stocks tank, then that means you just tanked. And that means you've given too much power to the stock market. We cannot be defined by our house, because if it burns down, did you burn down? I would think not. And we learned that in 9/11. Right? People had their lives, just it seemed that everything burned down, but they didn't. Right? I'm talking about that indefatigable human spirit. There's your $10 word for the night. Right? That indefatigable human spirit, unable to be fatigued, indefatigable, unable to be fatigued. That exists within all of us. And it's really just about tapping into that. And frankly, nothing else. I am my spirit. I am it. I'm not my possessions. Screw my possessions. And right now, we're being humbled. We're being brought to our knees to learn that it is possible to live without them. It's possible to live without our titles. It's possible for us to live without a lot. And until we get that figured out, we're not ready. We're not ready to be healed by the time we're in. We've got an opportunity to be healed here of a lot of things. So,
wow. Sorry, and Christy, I interrupted you, and my apologies for that.
Oh, no worries. And I loved what you said and wanted to add on to it, Glenn, is that this might be the first time some people are hearing this concept that you're not what you do, or you're not something outside of you. So what a great learning opportunity and a great moment for people to be able to reflect and go, well, if I'm not my career, right, I'm not something, and I would say you're not a mother, you're not a father, you're not, any label outside of yourself, who really are you? And I'd love for you, Glenn, to repeat what you said about yourself again. I'm an unrepeatable miracle.
I said I'm a miraculous, unrepeatable event in time. And but what's important and what keeps that, this is the key, Christy, what keeps that from being arrogant and like, wow, don't you hold a lofty opinion of yourself, which I could really hear someone saying that. And I would say, wait a minute, time out. I hold the same opinion of you.
Yes.
I hold the same opinion of you. I've never in my life, so help me, hand to God, I have never esteemed myself to be of 1 ounce more or greater significance than any human being in the world. And shame on my ass if I ever were to have done that.
Yes.
It's just not, it's not cool ever under any circumstances. But
Amen.
I not only know who I am, actually a great part of my life is spent helping people remember who they are.
Yeah, you're helping people remember that they're this also.
Yeah.
So you're inviting people into that. And I think that's what's so powerful, because when you're saying that, there's not a cell in your body that makes you think you're being arrogant. It's coming from a total place of love, of knowing who you are, and also wanting other people to really embrace that for themselves.
I promise you, there's not a student in my workshop that thinks of me as arrogant. Not one, because they really know me. And once they get deep into the teaching, they realize that the primary reason I teach is to invite that spirit out of them. That's the reason I teach. I'm not looking to build better actors first. I'm looking to build better humans. And then in doing that, then we wind up constructing better actors out of that paradigm.
Yeah. And if I can add one thing in, I work with a lot of kids, and with the 5th graders I work with, we start talking about being able to talk back to our automatic negative thoughts. And this might even be another tip for people, is knowing what are they telling themselves in their head and how to be able to talk back to those thoughts. But we're talking back to the thought, and we use the work of Byron Katie, that when we have a thought, we talk back to the thought of, I'm not good enough. Because every human being has the thought at some point in time that I'm not good enough. And so we go through the questions of, is that 100% true? No. Can you prove it 100% true without a doubt? You cannot prove that. Right?
That's
So
good. That's good.
So, and this once again is the work of Byron Katie, right? So the second question is, how do I feel with that thought? How would we feel with the thought of saying I'm not good enough?
Uncomfortable.
And what kind of answers do people come up with when you ask them that?
They feel, so these are generally like 10-year-olds, right? So they feel sad. They feel like they're not good enough, like depressed. And so then the next question is, well, how would you feel without that thought? So how do we feel without that thought?
Awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Great.
And so who makes your thoughts?
My mom.
I mean, sometimes, right? Right. But
She did.
we make our thoughts. So just because a thought comes in our head doesn't mean that we need to believe it. And so when you start having those tools to be able to step back and walk through that, okay, so then how would I feel without that? I would feel better, right? Then you can say, well, what do I want to say instead? So those 4 questions, once again, that comes from the work of Byron Katie, if you're familiar with her. And I teach kids all the time to walk through those questions. So then what we do is
what's question number 1 again?
Yeah, I'm going to be taking notes here too, Christy.
Is that 100% true without a doubt?
Yep.
Okay. Number 2 is, how do I feel with that thought?
Wow.
Number 3 is, how would I feel without that thought?
Sweetheart, can you say this a little more slowly?
Yes. Where are you at?
Well, if I'm asking it, I'm still on 1. Is I believe 1 was, is that 100% true without a doubt? Is that
without
correct?
a doubt? Yes.
Okay. Now 2 again is
2 is, how do you feel with that thought?
okay.
Or how do I feel with that thought?
Got it. Got it. And 3.
And 3 is, how would I feel without that thought?
Oh, this is so good.
And knowing that.
Number 2.
How do I feel? How do I feel with that thought?
I paid people to do my homework. Okay. How do I feel? Okay.
That's tremendous.
And then once again, you're checking in who gets to make your thoughts. That's not one of the questions. It's just maybe a note that you want to put on there, is that we get to make our thoughts. So what would I rather say instead?
What was number 3?
Number 3 is, how would I feel without that thought?
Oh,
that's the one I love. I use something similar to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so here's a cool thing, is that when I'm working with kids, we will talk back to that thought of I'm not good enough. And so when, so once again, it's, how do I feel with that thought? Sad, depressed, like they really feel like they can't do anything. They feel stuck.
So at that point, Christy, sorry to interrupt. At that point, Christy, what recommendations do you have for them to switch that, to change that state, or to give a different perspective to that meaning?
So when we walk through it and when we get to number 4, right? What would you rather say instead?
Oh.
Right? So then we come up with those ideas that I'm valuable, that I believe in myself, that I'm worthy, that I'm confident, that I'm awesome, right? Like make it good, right? Because how you feel, that's going to train your brain on what you see in life. And so I have a whole list of affirmations that I have them go through of hand on their heart, hand on their abdomen. I am valuable, right? I am worthy. And then we bring the yes into it. So we're practicing this. I am worthy. Yes. I am valuable. Yes. I am confident. Yes. I believe in myself. Yes. I believe in myself and others. Yes. I believe I can do anything I put my mind to. Yes. Right. So they're walking through this. And one of the things that I'll ask them is, when you say I'm good enough, when you say I'm worthy, when you say I'm confident, do you feel like you're conceited? And even our kids at 10 years old will feel like, if they believe in themselves and they feel good about themselves, that they're bragging. And so we have a conversation about, have you ever been around somebody that believes in themselves and feels good about themselves? And when you're around them, you feel so good, because not only do they believe in themselves, but they believe in you, right?
amen.
And have you ever been around somebody that doesn't feel good about themselves and they're putting other people down?
Yep.
Sure.
So when you believe in yourself, this goes back to what Glenn was saying. You're not only saying, I'm awesome and I'm amazing and I can do anything I put my mind to. You're saying, you're awesome, you're amazing, you can do anything you put your mind to, because you're holding that belief not only for yourself, but you hold that for everyone else.
Yeah, creating that space for them to step into. And Christy, that's what we do with our affirmations, right? In the program, when we say you are unstoppable.
Yes.
Right. All of those things. You're spot on. And I would think that having met me, and we're going to take a little wait and see attitude on this, but somehow I'm kind of wondering if those yeses will mutate into yeah, baby. Yeah, baby.
You know what? That's an invitation. I might take you up on that.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby. I have been sharing that with people this week for sure. And the reason I do the yes is because it's training the brain. We've been trained to know. We've got to undo that programming, and we've got to turn it to yes.
Well, and I want to build on that, Christy, just for a second, because those out there that you guys are watching this is kind of deep and a little bit metaphysical. But I can honestly say in the last couple of years, the journey that I've been on an internal journey of trying to discover all this, it truly, really makes sense. And when you really consider the deeper fact of why we're here and what we're supposed to be learning and how that interconnectedness comes, then it all blends together and all starts to make sense depending on how you believe it. And how you believe it comes from the time you're born to the time you're about 5 or 6 years old. And the truth be told is that we're born after 9 months because our head would get too big and wouldn't fit through the birth canal. So we still have the part of the brain that has to develop the emotional intelligence, right? The thing that's going to carry us through our life, the thing that they don't actually teach us about in school that they actually should teach us. So those first formative years, our conditioning process goes on by our parents and our teachers and our friends and our family. And we're told, just like somebody just posted on the screen, she said, I could totally identify with your mom giving you your thoughts. For the first part of my life, I thought I was stupid. I thought I was an idiot. I thought I was so many different things because that's what my mom told me. And she told me my thoughts didn't matter. It was what she thought. So when you think about all the different things, you think about the stupid stuff, even that we're lied to, we're told, always tell the truth. You better not lie. But then what do? They tell us about the Santa Claus. They tell us about the Easter Bunny. They tell us about the Tooth Fairy. But then they say, okay, but you always should be honest. And then all of a sudden you were honest. And then you say the wrong thing. You're like, why does grandma have a hair growing out of her chin? And all of a sudden you're like, no, Chris, don't be super honest. Just be honest, but know when to be honest and know when to lie. And then we're just brought up that way. And we're brought up, you're like, okay, you do this and you do that. And that's all before 5 years old. And then we're set off into life and we're like, okay, what's going on? And I talk to so many people. I can immediately tell them, usually within about 20 to 40 minutes, what it was in their childhood, potentially that caused them to be the way they are now and dealing with the issue they are now. I can trace it back to something that happened in school or something like that. Based on how they act now, it's still stuck in their childhood. So I just wanted to share that for people out there that might be going, this is kind of woo-woo and foofy. It's all based, a lot of it, from your conditioning and your beliefs when you're a kid. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we have our subconscious mind and our conscious mind, and that subconscious programming is 0 to 7. So the programs we're running, the things that aren't working in life, are mostly coming from that time before 7. And we'll just see it over and over and over again. And we're like, gosh, why does this always happen to me?
I was going to say something, but I saw Ken had his finger up.
And it was the index finger. So, what if, and this is a what if, and I've thought about this because I know Sherry Gideons has had 2 near-death experiences, and I have a dear friend, oddly enough, named Sherry. Also, her name is Sherry Ame, and she's been on Dr. Oz's show. She's been on many talk shows. Who had a near-death experience and was gone for 90 minutes. She was dead for 90 minutes.
Whoa!
Wow.
And she has an unbelievable story, and she talks about other lifetimes ago. She talks about, and I've heard this before, a lot of people go, well, when I was 3, this happened, or when I was 7, this happened, or when I was, whatever. But there's something, what if you have to keep showing up over and over until you get something, until it clicks? What if you're, again, I know, we probably just lost half the audience, but I'm just saying, what if? I'm not saying I believe it. I'm saying, What if you're literally bringing stuff from previous lifetimes into every new lifetime that you're coming into, or living in the what's the movie where you live in the multi what's
the
that movie?
Matrix?
The Matrix. What if you're living in multiple universes all at the same time? And Gabby said, "Shoot me now." That's funny. So, like, when there's so much more to life than what most of us, even think about. Most people never go that deep because their conditioning and their programming will not allow them to go there. Like, it's like, no, wait a minute. I heard the priest and grandma and grandpa and they all said, no, that, we die, we go to heaven. That's it. We're done. And, but what if their programming was off? What if it's, have you ever thought like that? I do. I think about it all the time.
I will tell you, one of the things I do with clients is I teach them how to release trapped emotions from their body, and it comes generations back. That a lot of times they'll have pain in their body, and it's literally a trapped emotion that was inherited. Pam, I know you have stuff to say around this too, right?
Yeah.
But it's inherited trapped emotion. Sometimes they got it in utero, but it can be passed down. Did your trapped emotion for your mom? Did your mom get it from one of her parents? Oh, she got it from her mom, and you can go generations back on some of this stuff. It's really fun. And once again, I know maybe not everybody in the audience is familiar with this, but this is a great time to move this stuff forward when we have time to study some new topics. And
big time.
Well, and it's really amazing the transformation that takes place in people, when they start to do this work. When you're sitting with someone and all of a sudden they're literally having a memory of being, from when they're 3 years old, a traumatic memory from 3 years old. And you realize that they're now finally at the age of 50 letting go of this energy. It's miraculous in a sense, right? But we're actually built to do this. Our bodies will give us the information we need if we will tap into it and ask for the information. And so I think that you're absolutely right. The time is now, because more than ever, we need to be able to, everything is changing so fast. And the technology around us is advancing so fast. We have to be able to understand how to, adapt to that. And to be able to do that, we have to use what we've been given to do that. And so I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with you that, this is the most important time, really, in some ways in our history when it comes to that, because we are faced with so many significant changes that, and when you look at the evolution of technology and the evolution of information, right, over the last just 10 years, and the rate at which we take in information now, so incredibly rapid, that unless we learn to do these things, we just won't be able to keep up.
I agree with you on that. Absolutely. If anybody's interested in learning about trapped emotions, there's a fabulous book called The Emotion Code by Dr. Bradley Nelson. And you can, even by reading that book, learn how to release trapped emotions from your body. And in his book, he shares this story of a little boy who learned how to teach his friend how to release trapped emotions. So 9-year-old little boy, his friend had a fear of water. They had taken him to all these therapists and no luck in getting this kid over his fear of water. This 9-year-old boy released a trapped emotion on his friend, and the mom called the other mom and said, I don't know what your son did, but my son's swimming. So
wow.
It's all in the book, Emotion Code, Dr. Bradley Nelson.
and speaking of books, I want to build on what Ken was saying earlier. A couple of years ago, I've said before, and actually I wanted to find out by who's in the chat box, how many guys of you are just seeing us for the first time, because a lot of us have shared a lot of different stories, and I don't want to keep repeating the same story. But Ken, exactly what you were saying, dude. A couple of years ago, my wife has been into the ghost hunter and all that other stuff, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. That doesn't exist. But my coach gave me this book called Miracles Happen, Transformational Healing Power of Past Life Memories. And she said, Christopher, read this. And I was just like, honestly, I was like, this is like last summer. I'm like, what? You want me to, what's this going to do for me right now? I need to fix what's right now. And she goes back in there, and this book is phenomenal in talking about past lives. When you were saying about injuries, they say that you could have a scar, like a birthmark in this lifetime. That birthmark in this lifetime is actually a scar from something that potentially killed you in a previous lifetime. There is some crazy stuff that talks about how your emotional baggage that you continue to carry on from lifetime to lifetime. That's why I've been so passionate about, like, instead of running from your problems, you got to run head on into them, because you're never going to run away from them in this lifetime, the next lifetime. And if you kill yourself, you get to come back faster and learn more about it even more. This book was like a game changer for me. It really opened my eyes up. It's like, you know what? Why do I have this arbitrary fear of water? I mean, I love water, but if I see a boat out of water, I freak out. I get this weird feeling. Or if I see an airplane in a weird spot, it's like, it could have been totally tied to something in my past where maybe I died from that. It is really eye-opening. And it also is great because for me, I'm not a super religious person. I mean, I believe in a higher spirit, and I believe in all sorts of different types of religion and spirituality. But for me, doing this and reading the Surrender Experiment and the Untethered Soul has exponentially opened my mind up to what this life is about. And it's taken away so much fear that I used to have. It's like, man, I don't want to die. I have so much to do. And I'm in a da-da-da-da. Now it's like, you know, like I've said before, being in the moments, being spiritual, being connected with people is the most beautiful thing you can possibly do on earth. So I just share that with you guys out there watching us, because yes, I was the guy that was going, no, I don't believe in any of that stuff. But the last 2 years have literally reshaped my foundation of how I look at life and how I coach. And it's just made me such a better person, and hopefully a better dad too. So just wanted to share that with you. And it's a great book.
That's awesome, dude. You know, there's a book, I've been sitting here looking for it. It's in my Audible library, called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz.
Maxwell Maltz. It was the first self-help book I read in my life. I read it when I was 17.
I have a friend. I will not mention his name because I'm going to tell you his status in life. That makes millions of dollars a year, and he will say that he's said it many times, and he said it to me in one-on-one calls. He's one of my mentors, and he said that this book, he's listened to this book 75 times, or read it. Psycho-Cybernetics. He says that it's the book that changed everything for him. It's an incredible, I mean, there's the, and you know, I mean, Glenn, I'll say this, if you're a huge fan of Maxwell Maltz, and you, as anybody that would really get into this book would be, like, it may unconsciously be part of the reason that you are the freaking Hollywood superstar that you are, because once you start removing those things that are blocking you in life, man, there's nothing left except for expansion. We were created to create. The universe is not like going, okay, hey, there's a coronavirus on planet Earth, so we need to stop expanding. The universe is continuing to expand nonstop, exponentially, at a rate that we can't even measure. And we were created for the same reason, yet we're all like, oh, I'm stuck inside, so I'm going to contract. And no, that's not the answer. The answer is always try to figure out a way to expand and grow.
Yeah. So there's 3 books that people can read.
Well, I'm going to throw another one out. So here comes number 4.
Oh, here we go.
As you can see, is like my other Bible, basically. It's The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy.
Yep.
And I read this book. I've read this book over and over. The reason that I have so many little tabs in there is because there are so powerful affirmations in this. And I actually literally went through, wrote out each affirmation on an index card. And I made a little flip index roller thingy out of it, so that I could just every day I could carry it around with me and everything. You know, I would just every day like flip through each card. And that way, if I didn't have my book with me, then I could just have my little cards with me. And I mean, it was such a game changer for me to be able to have these affirmations at my fingertips. But I'm going to throw this out there too, because as powerful as affirmations are, it really is important that people understand that we need to be able to release negative energy as much as we need to be able to bring the good energy in, and the affirmations in. And so sometimes we have what's called a psychological reversal. So we can't actually bring in the good energy that we want to, because we've got negative energy that's blocking it. And so that is the importance of doing the energy work, because if we, as much as affirmations can be helpful, if we don't do the other work with it, then they're not going to have the effectiveness that they could have.
Pam, talk a little bit about, because Pam is also an EFT expert, and I'd love for you to, because a lot of people don't know what that is. What is EFT? And I think, well, I don't think I know. I've seen Christy do it. So, maybe both of you can piggyback on this. But what is EFT, and why is it important for? I already know the answer. You've told me, but why is it important for people to know what this is and how to practice it?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I'll just give you what EFT stands for. So that's Emotional Freedom Technique. And I think, one of the easiest ways for people to understand this is that it's like acupuncture without needles. And so you're essentially accessing those same types of meridians and the energy flowing through your body, just like you would if you go to an acupuncturist. And what you're doing is you're just tapping on your body in specific places that will help you to unlock this energy that you no longer want in your body and that's not serving you. And so there's, a little bit of a system to it, and you kind of go through this. And what's very, very fascinating, though, about EFT, and by the way, just throw this out there, there's been a lot of research done. There's really amazing research out there. You can go read it on NIH's website. And it actually, what it does is it actually helps change your DNA ultimately. But what's really amazing when you do it is that it sort of taps into the intuition of your own body. And so your body will start to communicate to you what it is that it's been storing. So, what science is finding, what research is finding, is that our DNA stores more information than a supercomputer, right? Just one little piece of our DNA. And so these memories and things are all getting stored, and you're absolutely right. It could be from this lifetime. It could be from previous generations, right? We're bringing it into this lifetime when we come. And so what this tool does is it allows us to access all of that information and begin to kind of sift through what we don't want anymore and then let that go. And then what it does is it opens us up to bring in what we want.
Any examples you want to show anyone, like some of the techniques?
Yeah, well, okay, so if we were to go through it, if we're going through the whole sequence, it's a little bit lengthy, so we won't do the whole thing, but just to give you an example, you're going to start out with what's called a setup phrase. So you're going to say something you want to release. And for a lot of people, maybe right now that's fear. So you start with your setup phrase, and you do that, and you say, even though I have this fear, I deeply love and accept myself. And you're going to do this 3 times, and sometimes you'll alter it a little bit depending on how you're doing it. And then you just go through tapping different points on your body. And so as you do that, you're repeating part of the setup phrase. Now that's one way you can do it. There are a variety of different ways you can do it. Sometimes you may want to release something and then bring something in at the same time. And sometimes, like I said, you're going to access stuff within the body. So someone may have certs come up while you're going through, and tap through those things. It's kind of like peeling an onion, and you're going to go through the layers until you get to the core. So, it's hard to just say that here's one way you do it in every circumstance, and that's how it's always going to work, because that's just not the case. But ultimately, yes, if you're tapping on some things that are more simplistic, then you can do just one simple phrase and do that all the way through. And then, once you've done that, you can also do it so that you can tap something positive in.
Love that. What do you think, Christy?
I was just going to say,
yes.
Did you want to show just the simple, some of the tapping points so people could see that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you can tap the top of your head to start. Some people do it differently. I always do back of head, bottom of neck, and then back to the top of the head. And then you're going to go through eyebrows, temples, under your eyes, under your nose, under your mouth, Under your collarbone. And by the way, you guys, this is like a power point on your body. Okay. So when you're tapping this point, it doesn't even matter if you're tapping anything. You can just tap on this, and this is going to give you energy. All right. So keep that in mind. And then there's another one. Tap it out. That's right. But not tap out, right? Not to be confused with. Yeah. Right. Okay. And then you can do under your arm, a couple inches under your arm. Sorry, my computer's going a little quiet there. And hang on, I don't want to lose you. Okay. And then I like to do one that's literally, and women, this can be a little challenging for you, but it's right under the breastline. And this is actually called the spleen point. And that's also one that you can tap frequently just to like energize yourself for no other reason. You don't have to say anything when you're doing it. You can just tap
and where it. Can you set up so we could see where?
It's literally, we're right under your breastline. So for women, it's going to be right under your bra.
Okay.
For men, it's just, right under your chest line.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then I like to do wrists. Not everyone does that. I like to do wrists. Then you do all of your fingers.
Okay.
And then the outsides of your hands.
Okay.
And then thymus point.
And people could always reach out to you for more information, right?
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, thymus point is another point that if you just want to energize yourself, use that one. It's your, George of the Jungle.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. So at one point in time, I had taught my daughter to do the EMF tapping. And what I tend to use now is whole body tapping. So that's what we were doing the other day. Well, the other day we were doing head, heart, abdomen. And Pam, you can probably even teach me the importance of some of these parts. But another one that I love is whole body tapping. So you're starting with your head, do the different parts of your head, your face, you come down, of course, to your chest, lungs area, and then you put your arms out and you go all the way down. We're going all the way down, clap our hands all the way back up. You want to tap every part of your body because that's working with the meridians of our body, which are our energy flow pathways. We have, our meridians start in our head. They go 3 through each arm, through your core, and 3 in each leg. So once again, that's a type of acupuncture as well without needles, that your acupuncture is opening up blockages of energy in your body. So when you do whole body tapping, it feels amazing. I mean, people just feel so light. So I try as much as I can take everybody through that so that they can feel that lightness in their body. And that's another way to tap in. It's another tapping experiment.
You ladies,
I love that. And I was going to say, I know that's been used. I'm sorry, Glenn?
I just said, you ladies just gave me a fabulous idea for a new book. And it's Kinesiology to Prosperity, from tapping to tipping.
Oh, man.
That's better than the other book you gave me the other night.
I'm registering the ISBN on that tonight.
That book you gave me the other night, it still disturbs me in my dreams.
And even just one more thing is that your hands are really powerful. And Pam, you could probably talk to this too, because our organs are all represented in our hands. That center point right here is called your happiness point. So even massaging this point is really good for you. And you can just massage that point. So say you're somewhere and you're nervous or you're feeling a little anxious, you can rub that point. You can also just we hold a lot of emotions in our fingers. You can just be sitting there and just pull and just, hands in I'm holding my hands up higher so you can see, but you could have your hands in your lap and you're just pulling emotions out, and it will help to relax your body as well.
Christy, for every male viewer tonight, can you please at this time rewire our minds as to what exactly is our happiness point?
There could be different happiness points.
It could be that we've been misled.
This is the public happiness point, right? And because this actually connects to your belly button, and your belly button is actually where you started. So we have connections to our whole entire body from our belly button. And that's a whole nother talk.
Gabby's asking a question. She says, the energy won't cause anxiety. Will the energy actually cause anxiety, or is it a calming energy?
It tends to be a calming energy. So it's been very rare. There was one high school student that I was working with, and she said tapping actually caused more anxiety. So then we started doing more like massage and things like that. But I've only had one person say that they felt more anxiety, and that would be I always tell people, listen to your body. But usually people will feel less anxious, especially tapping, in the chest area. Anxiety tends to be an energy block in your chest, in your lungs. So the more you can tap here and get those energetic blocks out, the more relaxed your body's going to feel.
And breathe.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
breathe. And that's that breathing all the way
breathe.
down to your abdomen.
Yep.
So when you're breathing all the way to your abdomen, you're turning on the rest and digest state versus being in the fight or flight mode. When people are feeling anxious, they don't breathe deeply enough.
This is great. We're actually offering helpful hints for folks, things that they can be doing right now to improve their mindset. And I've been patiently just taking this in and breathing, but I've also been writing. And with your permission, I want to offer your audience something that I've not offered that really ties in with all of this. This is you ladies. This is your area of expertise. And I wanted, if I made a piggyback on something that Chris was talking about when he was referring to early in life imprinting, right? The things, you with me, Chris? The things that, that we were imprinted by. And years ago, I'm so excited, Ken, to bring this to your program. But in teaching this program called The Extra Mile, which I've been doing, this is not a plug, I've been teaching it for 35 years. And it started out as an actor mastery course, which was really about approaching my craft with the healthiest available mindset there was and its effect on outcome. Well, it turns out it's effective no matter what your line of work is. And then I started being booked by Fortune 500 companies, teaching the same program that had been exclusively set aside for actors for many years. And one of the epicenters of this teaching is a list that I refer to, and I actually want to share this list with you. The only one I know in the group that has heard me do this is Chris. But Ken, you've never heard this, and it's a list called the Not So Fine 9. The Not So Fine 9. And these are the 9 things. Now, by the way, there are more, and I've added them on a rotation, but these seem to be the constant ones that I don't think, I don't wonder. I know unequivocally that everyone on the panel and everyone in this audience and everyone in the world has been exposed to these. And it has been proven to me because all I have to do is mention the start of a sentence, and I'll guarantee you, you will be able to finish the sentence for me. May I do this for everyone?
Please.
Yeah,
Yes, please.
definitely.
Okay, so let's look at 9 things that we have been inculcated with, and we are from womb to tomb. I call it societal imprinting. The very first one. And so now we can begin to have compassion when we see why is there so much damage. And there's a lot of damage to the human spirit because it seems as though it is society's job to steer you away from the truth, right? So my job in my life has been devoted to helping people migrate back to the truth. Here is why we lost sight of the truth. One of the first central teachings we were taught by our parents, and yes, they meant well, but they handed on down to us what they were taught, and it's the phrase, don't get your hopes up.
Yep.
Really? So we are actually taught to live with low hopes. And I got to tell you, if that were on a menu in a restaurant, nobody would order it.
Yeah.
Nope.
Nobody would walk in and go, we've never eaten here before, but my wife and I were utterly smitten with this low hope platter. And in fact, could you bring us 2 of those? We would. So now we laugh about it, but it's an incredible learning process. And I got to tell you, what every great innovative thinker in life, every great explorer, every great achiever, what they all had in common were not only high hopes, but they went to the stratosphere and elevated their high hopes into elevated expectations. I have I've nicknamed a town. I call it Expectationville, right? Expectationville, and it's where I live. I really do. So you have every right to hold your high hopes. In fact, it is such a powerful thing to be amidst people who agree not only on their high hopes, but they clasp hands and look into each other's eyes. And it is so intense that they move from hope to expectation. And it becomes what used to be a hope and what is a hope for everybody else. Now for you individually, when you subscribe to this, it's no longer a hope. It's a vision. It is an expectation. That's number one. Number two is age and is wisdom. That's simply not true. And you know how I know this? Because I've known a lot of elderly idiots, a lot of them, right? It's just the truth that we don't get wiser just because we got older. So that was one of the big 9 lies we were taught. We get wiser. There's only one thing that makes us wiser, and that's paying attention. When you pay attention to lessons learned, you become wiser. If you bury your head in the sand and ignore what life is here to teach us, you will remain as ignorant as you were when you were 12 or 21 or 33. Age alone does not issue you wisdom. Number 3, don't get your I already said don't get your hopes up. How about this one? Time heals all wounds. Really? Really? Have you ever been to a family reunion? Right? My audiences love that when they laugh their butts off. So again, time doesn't do it. Even any more than age makes you wise. Time does not heal all wounds. Forgiveness is the only thing that heals wounds, not time. And we know this because we see Uncle Phil at the reunion, and the family is still holding the same resentments toward him for what he did 35 friggin' years ago. Right? So time doesn't heal all wounds. How about this one, which I heard this week? Money doesn't grow on trees. Money is friggin' made out of trees. Right? And not only that, but think about what's really being said here. So let's not only hear the words, let's hear the spirit with which this teaching was birthed. Money doesn't grow on trees is designed to teach people that money is hard to come by, which is a terrible core belief, right? So if you've got it wired in your head that it's tough to have money, then for you, it will always be tough to have money until you can mentally divorce this core belief. I'm trying to move through these fast. The next one is, and you can finish it with me. Go ahead. Sticks and stones may
break my bones.
Stones may break
And
my
people
bones,
never hurt
but
me.
You're an idiot for believing that.
right, but words will never hurt me. Nothing could have been a bigger lie. Absolutely, words will hurt you. Power of the spoken words. Words are enormously impactful. So once again, we were unintentionally lied to by society. So until we get that words are powerful, we will keep having crap fly out of our mouths that is not only impacting the people we're speaking with, it's our own self-dialogue, and it is keeping us stuck. Power of the spoken word. I'm almost done with these. Here's one I have an issue with, especially growing up in the South, where we were taught, you're supposed to be tough. And what we were taught is real men don't cry. Really? So let me get this straight. You're saying that the Creator accidentally installed tear ducts in men. Right? That was a cosmic accident. Oops, sorry. Oops, sorry, my bad. I only meant to put that in women. I screwed up. So I have to believe that there's a reason I was issued tear ducts, and you bet your sweet butt I will use them. And I will use them to maintain my emotional and spiritual health. The next one is, I'll believe it when I see it. No, you'll see it when you believe it. So it's exactly opposite. We are taught to stay in doubt by saying, I'll believe it when I see it, meaning show it to me. And the problem is that until you see it, until you believe it in consciousness, it doesn't appear. So again, backward instruction, courtesy of society. I've got 2 more to go here. It's too good to be true.
Yep.
So think about that. It's too good to be true. How about it's so good that it must be true? Right? So we are taught to separate that the minute something elevates to a place where we would label it too good, then it's no longer the truth. It has to be fantasy. Why? Because it's too good to be true. Right? And then I'm going to give you 2 bonus ones tonight. Actually, that was the 8th. So I'm going to give you a bonus one. Which one did I want to go back and give you the bonus one on? All right, I'll just cut to the 9th one. The 9th one is the grass is always greener on the other side. What this is, I consider this to be the single most damaging thing, which is why I listed as last. It's the last one. It's the most impactful, because if you really believe that the grass is what? Always greener, not sometimes greener, not greener in the spring. It's always greener on the other side. Basically, what we're teaching our children is saddle up, kids, and get ready to be unhappy. It's always going to be greener somewhere else, somewhere else, somewhere else, which is why people are constantly chasing happiness, because they're looking for it to be greener somewhere else. Here's the real truth. It is as green as you want it to be right where you stand. Because if you leave a very brown yard, the color of the grass is only the color it is based on the landscaper responsible for it. That's the reality. So if you have really bad landscaping skills, even if you go find a friggin' green lawn, that green lawn will very quickly become the exact same color as the lawn you left, because the lawn is now reflecting the landscaper's skill set. So the idea is not to go chasing down green lawns, but to learn a whole lot more about fertilizing the very place you stand. The truth is, the grass is always greener where we water it. And if we water the place we're standing, you'll discover that being right here, right now is phenomenal, and you do not need to go chase down happiness. Those are the not so fine now.
Wow.
Love those.
Amazing.
Wow.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Glenn. Yes,
You
those are
You guys,
amazing.
I want to say something real quick. You have 5 incredible human beings. I coach for a living, and I know that Christopher coaches for a living. I know Christy coaches for a living. I know Pam coaches for a living. Glenn, might as well say you coach for
I do. I coach for a living.
Right.
Yes.
And you guys are literally getting I can't. What's the dollar value? You guys want to calculate this? Let's see. I charge $900 an hour, so 2.5 hours times. So, like, you guys are getting unbelievable amounts of wisdom. And let me give you my PayPal address so you can. I mean, we're giving this to you for free. You're getting all of this information. Pam's talking about tapping. Chris is talking about, how to live at a higher level. Glenn is talking about living your life in a totally different way and realm. And Christy is talking about amazing things. I've been talking about a couple of decent things. And, like, you're getting all of this for free. So, like, don't take it lightly. And I know that there are people in here that are taking notes. Jeffrey Wolf said something earlier. I don't know if you guys caught it. Yep. He said, I can never take notes fast enough during these live streams. And you guys are getting, I mean, it's unbelievable. So Joe Ingram has $1 million cheeky in the corner of my mouth. $1 million. So, but anyway, like, I hope because I use pink Post-it notes, and I literally have all these pink Post-it notes everywhere just from the notes I've taken tonight. Yep. So it's
thank you guys for supporting that rant.
Oh my God,
that was awe-inspiring. I mean, that's like my Sunday Night Live the live I did the other day. It was like, here's all the things not to do, but it was a twist on the things that really, it was kind of like a stupid way that, like, life is really simple. That all you have to do is change the way you look at things, like we said before with Dr. Wayne Dyer, and the things you look at begin to change. I mean, that's all you're saying is, like, here's the stupidity of it. It's really not that hard to change the way you look at something to have a different outcome.
Absolutely.
Another that comes to me is that you can actually take these and turn these into, because we pretty much all have these as beliefs, right? And so we can actually use these to actually tap out that energy and tap in what we want to believe. And that, to me, is the power of it. I mean, because, to know it is one thing, but to actually let go of the energy that surrounds it, it's just so powerful to me. I'm constantly amazed by that.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh no, I was just going to build a little bit on what Ken said a minute ago. The beauty, when somebody asked me, like, if I spend time with them on the phone, they're like, they think that there's going to be a sales pitch or something like that. And there's God's honest truth. I have not sold a single person during this time, sold them. But when they ask me, like, how can I pay you back? What can I do for you? What do you need? And I'm like, what the best thing you can do for me? And I think, Ken, you guys will all agree with this. The best thing you guys can all do with this is learn it, implement it, and share it. Take all this stuff. It's not ours. It's not like, oh, this is the world according to Glenn or Chris or Ken or anything. This is stuff that you guys can sit there and take these notes and take the 9 tips that I posted on there and go implement them. It's one thing to sit here and be jazzed to be like, oh man, this is so cool. This is a way to spend Friday night. Man, that's a good point. That's a good point. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. That's a good point. But go implement it, and then go implement it for a couple of weeks. Go, holy shit, this stuff has really ripped my mind apart. I'm going to go on and do a Facebook Live. I've never done one before. I'm kind of excited about it, and go on there and share them and like say, listen, I've been listening to these guys. I learned this stuff. I feel so much better. And you go spread that word. That is the most payment you could ever give any one of us in our life, is to go do something and tag us with it and say, hey man, thanks a lot. I listened, I took action. That's why I said earlier, take massive action. If somebody's listening to that book 78 times, and I think I know who he might be referring to, anybody in that stature who listens to a book 78 times, that book is already bought and on my door. I literally already bought it. So you have to take action. You have to.
I got to say, may I? Real fast. I promise. Dr. Wayne Dyer talked about something called the 100th monkey syndrome. And when he was talking about the 100th monkey syndrome, he was referring to, and I wrote in my book a quote, and that is, there's no such thing as an original thought. All wisdom is plagiarized. Only stupidity is original. Now let me explain that. Because I said, look, if I quote somebody in my book while I'm writing this, if I remember who it is, I'm giving them credit. If I don't remember, I'm going to put in little parentheses, I'm not sure who said that. Let me know if you know, right? So I'm always going to give credit. But here's the thing, because some people get all pissy and they're like, wait a minute, I originated that. And like, as Dr. Dyer talked about, all thoughts, like, you weren't born into this world with the ability to think. You gathered that from an external source. They come from this energy floating around out here. Einstein said everything is energy in motion. So when you're having these thoughts, like we've all had these thoughts, like, oh, I have an idea for an invention, and then you forget about it because you get out of the shower and dry off, and you're like, what was I thinking in the shower? I had a great idea and couldn't write it down. And then you're walking through the store 6 months later and you're like, son of a, there's my idea I had right there on the shelf as seen on freaking TV, and it's like, so we let these thoughts pass. They just pass through us. Right. And some people grab a hold of them, i.e. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, people like that like, well, I wish I had an idea like that. But once you tap into the energy that's moving and you stop trying to put this huge definition on what it is, you can tap into it and accept it. So Dr. Dyer talked about the 100th monkey syndrome. They would take 2 monkeys from the same family, baby monkeys, take one to the other side of the world and teach it tricks that monkeys don't do on their own. They would teach it tricks. And within a very short span of time, the brother monkey on the other side of the world would start doing that same exact trick, because thoughts are energy. They're constantly flowing out here everywhere, and we get to tap into them. And we get to read books by Glenn Morshower, by Christy, by Pam, by Chris, by me, by Dr. Wayne Dyer, and all of these books we've talked about. But here's what sucks about people that buy books. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it loud.
Preach.
They don't read the damn things. They'll read 9 pages and put it down. Maybe they hit a bad page and they don't push through it. And they're like, there's a multi-gazillion dollar idea on page 35 and you stopped at page 9, you asshole. Like, pick the book up and read the whole book. I'm done.
Books change lives. Books change lives. Books
There
change
you have
lives.
it.
I'm a living
Yes.
example. We're all
You
living
know,
examples.
It's interesting. When growing up here in Texas, I used to work on car engines in my spare time. And one of the things that I learned about a mechanic really applied to becoming a mechanic of life is that there are two things that are needed. One is the knowledge of mechanics, but it turns out that's not enough. It's got everything to do with that combination of knowledge of mechanics combined with the size of your toolbox. In other
Yes.
words, you can have the knowledge of what's wrong with an engine, but if you don't have the physical tools in the box, there's really nothing you can do about it except sit there knowing what the problem is, which doesn't make the car run better. For you to
Right.
stand there and just intellectually know, well, I know it's a head gasket, but unless you have the jack to get the car up and the tools you need to get the engine torn apart to get down to the head gasket, you'll be SOL. So really, it's about acquiring knowledge of and fattening your toolbox so that you can work. And then typically, I won't say that nothing's a problem ever. I won't ever say that, but I'll say that things seem to be less of a problem the bigger your toolbox. I want to say that again. Things seem to be less of an issue the bigger your toolbox. Is it going to solve everything? No, but it sure takes the pinch out of an awful lot of frustration in life if you just acquire a larger toolbox. I want to offer one more thing as part of this teaching of the extra mile that is much shorter than the not so fine 9. But I was able, man, I think it stemmed from a core belief that my dad had. He told me years ago, and he sounded like this. He goes, Glenn, the world is divided into two parts. Oh, I blew it already. Damn it. Let me say it again.
Cut.
Take two.
Take two.
Thank you. And that's the beauty of being an actor. That's the beauty of being an actor is they only show the audience the second take, right?
Right.
So let me try that again. Let me try this again. And well, I got to ask for your indulgence to pretend that you didn't hear me screw it up first, okay?
Okay, I don't.
So he
remember
told
what you
me,
said.
he said, Glenn, the world is divided into three kinds of people. Three kinds of people. Those who can count and those who can't. It's a good joke. But he's been deceased since 2003, and so I boogered it up. But it's good. So from the extra mile, this is a great thing to understand. And as you listen to this, it will help you. You talked about content tonight. Here's some beautiful content. And I just want you to listen to four distinctive rooms and ask yourself, you don't need to confess it to anybody else, but ask yourself, in which room do I reside? Room 1 is the room of impossibility. They see things as impossible. Their theme word is no. And we hear these types of people floating around. It's not a judgment. It's just an assessment. And if they want to hang out in room 1, that's fine. But you won't be able to attract certain outcomes in your life until you're willing to give up your residency in room 1. And these are the people who go, I was wondering if we might know. Well, I could always know. Well, we should probably know. And so the no is locked and loaded, and it's there to veto even the smallest of dreams, right? So that's room 1 consciousness, impossibility. Possibility is room number 2. Possibility. It's the room of neutrality. They are neither yes nor no. They are neither pro nor minus. They are simply in neutral. And basically their catchphrase is maybe. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not true. I don't know. I'll stay tuned. And they tend to look at you if you're sharing something with them. Someone who is in room 2 consciousness will say, tell me more. So they're open, whereas room 1 is closed. Level 3. So we've got impossibility, possibility. Now level 3 becomes probability. Their theme word is likely. This is not out of a book. It's not out of a sermon. This is actually something that appeared to me while I was in the shower, one of many epiphanies, and I actually stopped showering and got out and skipped, honest to God, skipped toweling off. It was that powerful. Like I didn't want to stop to dry off for fear that I might forget some of its richness, right? Because I was in it. And I wanted to spill out on the page exactly what it was trying to teach me in this moment. So level 3 is now probability, which means they see things as likely, right? So you go into a business venture, you see things. We're holding in consciousness what we feel about this current COVID-19 situation. What are we seeing as likely? And then room number 4, the ultimate room. Let me see if anyone can guess. So we start with impossibility. Room 2 is possibility. Room 3 is probability. And room 4 is inevitability.
God damn.
Inevitability. And it allows us to be in a place where we see things as being inevitable. And it is in that room where we rid ourselves of weakened language such as hope, wish, and want. We're not caught in hope. We're not standing around wishing or believing in the tooth fairy. We simply expect things, and these are not unreasonable expectations. They are reasonable expectations because we've made sacrifices, because we're prepared, we're fighting the fire, all hands on deck. We have every right to expect favorable results. So again, real quickly, without the details, room 1 is impossibility, 2 is possibility, 3 is probability, and the highest level of consciousness available to you and me is inevitability. There is a word for that, and the word is pronoia, for that whole mindset of inevitability. And pronoia is the opposite of paranoia, which is fear-based. Pronoia, look it up. Pronoia is where you really hold the intrinsic belief that life conspires on your behalf, where you can live opening your eyes in the morning expecting a favorable outcome. And what's interesting about that is the expectation is the primary thing that fuels it, as long as you're willing to do the work. When you expect things to go well, I got to say, how many of you have noticed this about life? When you really expect them to go well, and here's the big and you're willing to do your part, do you know how often that winds up being the outcome? Invariably, it goes well because you took responsibility for it going well, instead of taking responsibility for it turning to dog do, right? This is an issue of mindset, and it's available to us. We get to choose what room we wish to dwell in. That's called the 4 rooms of consciousness.
And I got to say that, you know, I talked about this, I don't know, it's been a couple of weeks ago on a live stream where I heard, maybe it was recent, I don't remember, the days are running together. But Grant Cardone did this event in Cancun years ago, and I heard him, he was on stage talking about this, like, you have to believe in yourself. And he said, Muhammad Ali is considered the greatest boxer that ever lived on this planet. And people argue with that, whatever. I think obviously he was, if not the greatest, he was the greatest. So he, you know, and the thing is he claimed it. He said it. I am the greatest. He said it all the time. And he said it with that enthusiasm. I am the greatest. I am the greatest. He said it with so much enthusiasm. He generated that feeling. And that's the feeling is where we start what we're feeling is where we start creating our reality. It's from our feelings, right? So he did that. I am the greatest. I float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. And he believed it. And so in turn, it was inevitable that he became the greatest.
Correct. And Ken, if I can piggyback on that very idea.
Yes.
The idea is once you've made such a bold declaration, and I've studied Muhammad Ali's life, the documentaries that are out there about him, they're really worth watching. It's powerful. But so then there's a question, and this is really for your audience, is if you're going to make a declaration about yourself that is bold like that, then the follow-up question, which does not need to be advertised to the world, this is a question that I think we are called to ask of ourselves. And here's the question. If I am the greatest, then hey, Glenn, what would the greatest do?
Right.
What would the greatest do? That's the question. So if you decide you're the best, if you decide you're the deepest, if you decide you're the most loving, if you say, I am a loving individual, then part of that declaration, there's a responsibility inherent with that. And the responsibility would follow up with the question, then what would love do? You just said you're loving. What would love do here? And what would the greatest do? Well, the answer is it's a combination of what the greatest would do and what the greatest wouldn't do. So on the list of things the greatest wouldn't do, the greatest wouldn't sit on his ass on a couch watching TV, eating ding dongs. That's not what the greatest would do, because that's not the pathway to being the greatest. So now the vision, which is going to our envisioned future, that vision that we hold for our lives becomes the template of behavioral choices. The template will actually tell you a list of what to do's and what not to do's. Because once you've declared yourself to be the greatest, that rules out a whole lot of behaviors. Why? Because the greatest doesn't do that.
That's right.
And then you also add to it, okay, then what does the greatest do? And what you find out about are all the things that fellow greats also did. And then you realize, oh my God, I may have just figured out something that's key about life. Is it possible? And I say, no, it's inevitable. It's not just possible that life actually is infinitely and eminently formulaic. I mean, it responds to the recipes that you are implementing. So if you're implementing a set of things you do that make you the greatest, and you're eliminating all behavioral choices that are contrary to being the greatest, the inevitable outcome is that you wind up experiencing life at the level of the greatest, because that's the recipe you cooked your life with.
Yes.
That's how it works. It's a recipe. And that will allow you to no longer blame your aunt, your uncle, your sister, your cousin, your shitty upbringing, whatever it is. You can't do that, because you know what? That's not what the greatest does. The greatest gives up that. The greatest gives up complaining about it. That's not part of the pathway to being the greatest. So until you're willing to surrender your residency in Complainerville, that's another town, by the way. If you insist on holding an address and a residency in Complainerville, you don't get to be the greatest. I'm not being a dick. I'm explaining how it really does work this way. And then now what it does is it coaches us to rise to the occasion and maybe finally behave like the full-fledged adults we are in this lifetime. And what are we waiting for?
Let's wish Esther a happy birthday, by the way. I saw that today's her birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Esther. Happy birthday to you. Hey, Ken,
On the Friday night,
Ken, right
night.
on the heels of that, right on the heels of that teaching about mindset, right? And deciding that it is infinitely formulaic and that we use recipes. Can I tell you that one of the 11th, not so fine 9 going up to number 11 that would veto that is this one. And it's always said with a crossed set of arms. Well, it says you, or how about this one? It's not that easy. Hey, fella, it ain't that easy. And what they don't understand is that opinion is the problem.
That's right.
The opinion that it ain't that easy, that's the issue. And if you could get someone to realize that they will not be able to gain access into the doorway, basically the gateways to greatness are not opened to people who stand at the gate with their arms crossed going, well, it's not that easy. So the opinion is the issue. Man, you want to talk about stuff that gets daddy jacked up? This stuff gets daddy jacked up.
And you talked about it the other night, and I don't know, I didn't tell you this, but I literally started writing another book, and it's about making a decision, because the number one thing that holds people back in life is the decision.
Bingo.
Glenn, you talked about it the other night. I brought it up. I said Bob Donnell told me about it, and you said, "Oh, I know what he was talking about," and that was the decision you made as opposed to what other people make in the decision realm up on making their journey into Hollywood.
Yeah, well, society would have you believe that you're pursuing a career in acting.
Right.
Society would have you believe that you've decided to pursue acting. And so in droves, thousands and thousands of actors annually. It's thousands that move to Los Angeles with that dream. And they specifically, they tell all their friends and family, I'm moving to LA to pursue an acting career. And I got to tell you, I moved to LA at 18, but I did not, like society wanted me to do, I did not move to LA to pursue a career as an actor. I moved there to have one.
Big difference.
It's a completely different thing, because do you see that when you move somewhere to have one, and even not only to have, Ken, but to actually continue one, meaning I'm already an actor, I'm simply going to move and continue it on Los Angeles soil, but I'm not moving there to pursue it any more than I'll guarantee you none of you pursued dinner tonight. And no one ever calls somebody on the phone and says, hey, next Saturday, you want to get together and pursue dinner? They don't do that, because when you hear it in that context, it serves as a tremendous teaching tool. And then you realize, wow, what an awakening. I tend to use the word pursue in the matter of things I don't expect to catch. Let me say that again. I tend to use the word pursue in the matter of things I don't expect to catch. So again, if you expect to catch something, part of that mindset says, then quit using pursue as part of your vernacular.
That's right.
You can't catch things with pursuit consciousness. You catch things with catching consciousness.
Yep.
Glenn, I want to throw another thought out there to you on that.
Sure.
One of the things you were talking about is that there's thousands of people that come for a dream.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if that's even part of, if it's a dream, right? It's not, you're not seeing it as your reality. You're not seeing it as already is.
I'm with you. Although in my language, Christy, I totally get what you're saying. In my language, dreams are your reality. Right. So I don't see a dream as unravelable. I see dreams from room 4. And so dreams in 1 and 2, in rooms 1 and 2, dreams are viewed as not havable.
So
right. So 1 says no, 2 says maybe it's havable. 3 says probably it's havable.
And I agree with you on that too. So here's another thought. What does somebody think about dreams?
Well, is anyone chiming in on this? Or are we now down to 3 people?
We're just having a fun conversation on this, right?
I'll chime in.
It's going to go back to your feeling.
Well, let me,
your dreams, right?
Ken, before you do, let me, and this will be super, super brief. All I want to say is this, that it is in room 4 where everything changes, because in room 4, what used to be regarded as a dream isn't. It's actually reality.
Right.
It's only a dream if you see it as lofty. And room 4 not only sees it as havable, they see it as inevitable. Therefore, the moment it becomes inevitable, it's no longer a dream. It's not a dream anymore. It's just your reality. And you start greeting things with, well, that only makes total sense to me that occurred. That only makes total sense. Ken, what were you going to say, buddy?
Well, I used to walk around with this, I told you I dropped out of high school in 12th grade biology. And I walked around with this low self-esteem, thinking, I didn't graduate high school, so I must be an idiot, and et cetera, et cetera. And then one day I made the decision that, wait a minute, somebody started high school. It started somewhere, and there were plenty of people before somebody started this freaking bullshit high school thing and this you graduate thing and you get this piece of paper. There were many intelligent human beings that lived on this. I don't know that Jesus got a diploma or a GED. There were many intelligent beings that lived on this planet prior to this whole education system. And so I said, well, wait a minute. The answers are in books then. I mean, where there's got to be wisdom in these books. There's a book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. There's another one, I think it's called Awareness, by Anthony DeMello, who was a Jesuit priest. And you know, they talk about we're living, people don't get this. And if you really think about this, you really got to open your mind up and think about this. You're awake right now. Us five on this panel, we're wide awake. Well, I'm not wide awake. It's 1:24 in the morning, but we're awake right now. We're communicating, right? Everybody watching this stream is awake and watching and typing in comments and all of that. But are you really? Are you really awake? Because we're all living, whether your eyes are closed or they're open, you're living in a dream state. And these books talk about that I just mentioned, the Four Agreements. And I'll look up, when somebody else starts talking, I'll look up the other one by Anthony DeMello. I think it's Awareness. But like we're constantly in a dream state. And once you accept that and you focus on what your dreams are, you can create any dream that you want. You can make it your reality. You can make it your reality. When I made the decision that, I've read more. Listen, I have had some brilliant college graduates work for me, and I've had some not so brilliant college graduates interview with me that I didn't hire, right? I'm a high school dropout, and I had an assistant that had a Juris Doctorate that practiced law for many years, and she was my personal assistant. So, you know, I think that once you remove these labels that we all tend to put on ourselves, and you say, wait, there's an answer. There is an answer in a book somewhere. Somewhere you can find the answer. Yes, you can get great tips on things like this, but there are answers in books. And if you just, like, I literally have, I don't even know how many books I've read, thousands of books. And I've found so many answers that I would have never learned in college. I would not have learned that in college. So again, the dream state you're in whether you're awake or you're sleeping. All the time you're dreaming.
I love that, Ken. And I have to just add here that what came to me when you were talking was, and I love that you bring up Jesus, because there's so many like little nuggets that are so amazing. And one of the things he says, one of the things that he told the disciples was, he's performing all these miracles, and he says, greater things that will you do than I have done. And so we have this idea of miracles, but once we understand that we have access to all that is in the universe, that it's all available to us and it's also within us, then we have a different perception altogether, because we can then realize that what we had perceived as miracles before really are miracles. It's really just what is. And we have to actually just step into it.
Right. Yeah. Well, I've always said that in room 4, the supernatural becomes the extremely natural.
Yes.
Right. Exactly. And that quote, Pam, that quote, I have referenced in almost every extra mile talk I've given. And here's what's interesting. It was perhaps the greatest call to action that has also been the most overlooked one.
Absolutely agree.
I mean, it was the intent behind it was to download an understanding of greatness, right? To imbue others with their inherent greatness and remind them that these and greater things ye shall do. Yes. In other words, this is how strong you are. This is how big you are. And it lives and moves and has its being in the infinite presence of life and joy and wisdom and power and peace and the beauty of wholeness, all of that within you. Now go do something with it. And instead we stood around and went, man, you're really powerful. And that wasn't the message we were supposed to hear.
Right.
We were supposed to hear that we're powerful as well. What happened, Pam? I'm asking you, what happened to that part of the message, and why did we miss that?
Yeah, right, exactly. And I think that, that's kind of the question that a lot of us ask, but at the same time, we can also look around us and say, well, okay, there are some things that, have happened, some other energies that are at play, throughout the course of history. And so, it's us learning, to understand that we have choices around that. We can choose lower energies, we can choose higher energies. It goes back exactly to what you were just saying a little bit ago. It's our learning and our being aware and being willing to learn and being willing to be aware and doing the work it takes to get there, because frankly, it's just not, it's not necessarily always easy, right? And so we have to be willing to do the work, like you said.
That's a definitely point, Pam. It really goes back to what Dennis Morella just said a minute ago. Your words are your GPS, and building on all of that, when you guys out there watching this, a simple act that you can take is when you say, I can't do something. Somebody was talking to me today, and they're like, "Oh, Chris, you don't understand. I can't do that. I can't do that." So I was telling them, you have to be resourceful. You have to think differently. You have to do differently. You're not going to get out of this doing the same thing you were doing before you got into this, because you weren't doing very well before you got into this. So now you're going to really have to dig deep. And I said, she goes, I can't. I said, you're saying you won't. When you say you can't, like, oh, I can't do that. I can't speak in front of people. I can't do math. I can't remember things. You're saying I won't, because you're saying you're not going to do the work that's needed to be able to overcome whatever it is that you're missing in order to be able to do it. So if you sit there and use that language, I can't do that, then guess what? That's what you're going to focus on. Your belief is going to be your reality. We talked about it a couple other nights. If I tell you guys out there, everybody in your room right now, look around the room and say, I want you to give like a minute, and you're going to tell me everything that's red. You're going to look around your room and you're like, okay, that poster's red. That's red. That's red. That's red. And then I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to say, okay, tell me what was green. And you're going to be like, well, you told me to look for what was red. That's what your brain is doing. Your brain is saying, go look at the negativity. Go look at the shit you can't do. Go look at what seems impossible. Instead of turning around and focusing your brain like they teach you in motorcycle school. Jeff, you know this. Look to where you want to go. They teach you in motorcycle school, if you're in a curve, you do not look straight ahead. You look through the curve. You look through where you're going to go. That's what you have to do in life. That's what we're talking about here is you have to have that. You have to have that will and that desire within inside of yourself, that burning fucking flame that says, no, I'm not going to give up. I am going to continue to do this until I figure it out. People ask me how I stay going. I'm like, I'm truly unstoppable. I'm going to sit there and figure it out. I'm going to learn it, and then I'm going to teach it. So when you just think about the things that you guys do at home, put a rubber band around your wrist. And every time you say, I can't do that, or something else negative, turn it around and say, you know what? Perhaps if. It's such a beautiful phrase. If you say, perhaps if I got tutoring, perhaps if I changed my perspective, perhaps if I started reading documentaries and doing those things and going to a library and investing in myself, perhaps I will be able to do it. And then, like Glenn, you're saying, seeing through and having that inevitability, you will get there. It will be painful and it'll be tough, but you will get there.
Yeah. Well, and then, you know, perhaps if is room 2, perhaps if, right? So that's the room of neutrality. So if someone ever used the word perhaps, I automatically know where that language places them. Perhaps that. And that means that movement is happening, right? Escalation is occurring.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, Glenn, is, same thing. So the perhaps, if you can move somebody from 1 to 2, sometimes it's a process.
Yes. And then the next one, we'd move from no to perhaps to probably. Like probably, which is another one beyond perhaps. But here's the thing. You'll never get them from no to probably without taking them through the town of Perhapsville.
Right.
Yep. So true.
It's just the truth, right?
Yep.
So these are stairs that have to be climbed. And there are certain things in life where there is, I really believe this, a true education has no elevator. A true education has no elevator. It only has stairs. That's it. And this idea that you're going to access the top floor via an elevator is bullshit. You also will have no sustainability, no infrastructure. You can't skip the steps. And that's why I said the willingness to do the work. You show me, I'll tell you who's going to be a winner. You show me a student that's willing to do the work, right? But someone who wants a shortcut, just tell me how to get on top of the building the quickest way. And I would say, you got to take the steps. And if you're really good, you can navigate steps faster, but you're still not going to get on an elevator. And the truth is, here's the deal. First of all, you can't. It's not going to happen. The deeper truth is you really wouldn't even want to once you understand more about the way it works. You would never want to access the top level via an elevator because you would realize, 1, you'd never appreciate it. 2, it would go away as quickly as it appeared. because of the absence of infrastructure. There's no way to sustain it. Why? Because you didn't earn it. And anything in life that we didn't earn, we tend to be reckless with. I want to say that again. Anything in life we don't earn, we tend to be reckless with because we don't really see its value, right? We assign values to things that we built. If you build something, you go, God, that matters to me. And relationships are no different. That's why I don't believe in a relationship. You want to, right at the gate, start issuing them the top floor. Whatever the top floor is, maybe it's sexuality. And you know what I love? We've done our job, my friends, my brothers and sisters. I love all of you. We have done our friends a favor. We've done this room a favor, the people that are listening, if we have allowed them to take a little break from the heaviness. And I've got a strong feeling, unknowing that there have been many people, if not all, that for large segments of tonight have temporarily taken a break from the sense of overwhelm. And they've actually been dialed in and listening and learning and growing. And maybe they've just been nodding, or maybe they've been laughing, but they've been able to successfully focus on just this program. And if they have, and I believe they have, then we've done our job. But yeah, there is no elevator to the top, and we wouldn't want there to be, because you can't stay on top unless you got there via the stairs. It's just the truth.
And Gabby will never be able to watch The Resident again without thinking of this live stream. And that's pretty cool.
Well, that's okay. The guy I play on the show is a billionaire, and he didn't acquire his billions without taking the stairs. Same idea. We all take the stairs. So shortcut consciousness is not really the way. I'll tell you what it is. Shortcuts are good for the micro. They suck for the macro.
Amen.
That's a great way of putting it, Glenn. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's kind of like reading the last page of a book. You might know the end, but you don't know all the stuff in between.
Right. So people who sleep with somebody, and this is not a judgment of them, it's just a caution. We advised our kids, don't just go meet someone and sleep with them, because you're granting them access to the top floor without having insisted that they take the stairs to your greatest intimacy. And where's your self-respect? Why don't you respect yourself more than to make them earn it? And is there a designated period? No, I don't know what that might be. A shorter time for others, but don't not make them wait at all, because now you don't even know how they really feel about you. Anyone who actually loves you is going to be willing to earn you. I want to say that again. Anyone who actually loves you is going to be willing to earn you. And if you have healthy self-esteem, then there is an earnings period where someone really has to earn who it is you fully are. And to me, it's not about over a very, very long period of time. I'll tell you how you earn someone. You earn someone by standing in the truth. That's how you earn them. And they earn you by returning the favor. And you could say, well, how long does that take? There's no telling. But don't let anybody bullshit their way into earning you, because that's going to be a problem. And then don't be surprised when the relationship breaks down real fast, right? Because you never made them earn you. And if I went back, some of these short-lived 6-week romances that I have people share this with me, and I go back, well, let's look at how you allowed them to get to the top. Let's look at that pathway. And then you would realize, that's not what a great relationship does. A great relationship doesn't work that way. It involves certain steps of maturity. And I always say to my students, make them earn you. Make them earn you.
In recovery, the recovery movement has 12 steps. And I've seen many and friends of mine in recovery would be able to that have seen this would say, yep, I've seen it, where somebody comes in, they want to get clean or sober off of drugs or booze, and they do step one, admitted that they have a problem, and then they immediately, because they're so freaking wise and experienced, they immediately want to start helping everybody else get sober. That's called the 12th step, going out and helping other people and delivering a message of hope and sobriety and recovery. And it never, and I do mean never, ever, ever works out for that person. It never does. They always end up drunk again or using drugs again, because there are 12 steps. And
Again, let's say that again. There are 12 what?
Steps.
That's
there
my
are 12
point.
steps. And you can't go from step 1 and go, I'm going to go ahead and skip step 2 because I can. My legs are long. I can get up there to step 3. No, you have to you have to go all 12 steps one at a time to get to the end result. And that is hopefully, like for me, hopefully it's a lifetime of sobriety.
I fault our speaker world. I do fault our speaker world because they would have you believe, not all, but many would have you believe that there is an elevator, and they want to sell you an elevator ticket, right? And that's really what the Feel Good Weekend is about. Is let me just sell you your elevator ticket. I'll teach you a couple of things, and you'll be on the elevator, and that's problematic. As long as you understand there is going to be work to be done, that doesn't mean, Ken. I think this is important. It doesn't mean that work has to be arduous.
Right.
That's an opinion. Work can actually be pleasurable. I play for a friggin' living. Do you know why I play for a living? Because I wanted to play for a living.
Yep.
There's no other reason I do it. I wanted to play for a living because I got tired of seeing the frowns on people's faces and how many people I observed over the course of my life that hated their job. And I thought, hating my job, that's not something I'm into. No. This dance is it's interesting. You know how we hear the phrase life is too short? Let me throw this one at you. Not only is life too short to hate your job, life is also too long to hate your job.
Amen.
Right? Yeah. So it's both. It's a weird combination of being too short to hate it and too long to hate it. So all you have to do is decide in a contrary manner, contrary to those societal imprintings of the not so fine 9, that you know what? I don't think that I wish to co-sign the belief that work equals hard, or work equals difficult, or work equals frustrating, or work equals being underpaid, or the list goes on, or work equals misery. What if, so here's room 2 of perhaps, what if I were to merge that work could be enjoyable? And then the alarm clock would no longer piss me off, right? I would never get pissed off at an alarm clock if it's waking me up to go do what I love.
Right.
So we have to spend time following metaphysics and dwell upon the thing we wish to expand. So dwelling upon the idea that I can work and be paid extremely well to do something I love, and then be willing to do the work behind obtaining that, then all of a sudden we shouldn't be surprised when those dreams become our reality. It's because that's where we were headed. That was the highway we were on. I have never, ever, ever been surprised when I got on I-15 northbound from Los Angeles that 4 hours later I wound up in Las Vegas. That has never surprised me.
It works every time.
Yeah, that's a lesson on trajectory. If you place yourself in the right vehicle, on the right road, headed the right way, don't be surprised when you actually friggin' get there.
Yep.
It makes sense. Every time I've been on that road, I've gotten to Las Vegas, every single time. But if I had been on I-15 South, I would have wound up down in a different town.
Yep.
It's just the way it is. And people,
close to me.
If we look, that's right. If we look maybe down in Temecula, but if we look at what road we're on and follow a map, then we'll get to where we're headed, but we're not going to get where we're headed when we're not on the road that gets there.
I think Jeffrey this is step 12. It's the first part of step 12. This is in the recovery movement, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. The steps that we have to take. And again, what you said, like step 2, for me, step 1 and 2 and 3 in my recovery were easy, man. Like I was done. I knew I had a problem. I admitted it, and I knew I was incapable of fixing it on my own. I knew that. So I was done. It took 20 years of being an idiot to get to that point, but I got to that point, and so it doesn't have to be hard work doing the steps. They can happen quickly. You hear, look, you hear a lot of younger and older people. I mean, I remember when I watched what's the movie, the movie about Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. What was that movie called?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking? The Social Network.
Yeah, that one. Yep.
Yeah.
Social Network.
So, like, it kind of shows a few, I don't know, makes it seem like, well, he spent maybe a 6-month period of going through some tumultuous times at Harvard. And did I mention it was Harvard? And so, like,
sarcasm noted, Ken. Sarcasm noted.
It was at Harvard, and he dropped out, by the way. And then, he's catapulted into massive billionaire success, and that is not the way it happened. It's not the way it happened. He did get through the steps faster than most people would. He maybe this was his 30th lifetime. I don't know, but he got it, and he got it right, and he's made a lot of mistakes. I don't know about you, but I don't ever want to have to sit in front of Congress and explain my business with them attacking me. And he's had to do it. And I'm not saying I believe in everything about the guy, but like, he's had to do it. And I don't know. I would crumble. I'd probably cry. I don't know. Okay. You guys can't handle the truth. But so I again, don't compare your movie to someone else's highlight reel. That's one of my favorite.
That's a great one.
Favorite quotes, right? Because I can sit here and go, yeah, well, look at Glenn Morshower. He's had it so easy because somebody told him, hey, just make a decision that you're going to have a career and not pursue one. And then he did. And look how lucky he was on Star Trek, and he was in all, and he just got lucky, and he's been successful his whole life. And that's just not the case. It's not the case. It's not true. So we compare our movies to everybody else's highlight reels, and that's just crazy. Right?
Haven't we all heard the saying that comparison is the thief of joy?
Yes. Yes.
It's so true. By the way, you mentioned decision.
Happiness. That's another one.
What is that one?
Comparison is the enemy of happiness.
Yes.
Yeah.
You mentioned the importance of decision, and I just want to tell you, I'm curious. I want to go around the circle and ask you a book title that, if you could say, just make sure you read this one. Just make sure you read this. The single most influential book that I've read in my life was a book, strangely enough, with that word in the title, Ken, and it was called The Power of Decision by Raymond Charles Barker. Yeah. And I read that book and have not only read it, I've studied the book. I've taught the book. I made it mandatory reading. It wasn't even invited reading. It was mandatory reading for my workshop of actors, because I wanted them to become more proactive and leave rooms 1, 2, and 3 behind. And it's by Raymond Charles Barker, The Power of Decision.
Yeah.
What are you guys' favorite books? Maxwell Maltz's book, Psycho-Cybernetics, is what started me out when I was 17. And he talks, have you read that? You've read Psycho-Cybernetics, Ken?
Oh, yes. I've listened to it. I've not read it. This book is my favorite book of all time. In fact, I got to tell, and it's not a really, really thick book. I started a private Facebook community called Beyond Positive Thinking. And I created this group, a private group, because Glenn left. I was going to start this private community where I invite other people in, and we literally study this book together, because it is absolutely freaking everything. It's everything Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about. And I'm going to tell you about this. My buddy, Brian Hess, which you met Brian the other night, He called me up one day and he goes, dude, I got to tell you a secret. I go, okay. There's this guy named Ed Milet that everybody online has heard of. Most people have heard of Ed.
Ed's
and
awesome.
Ed is he's the CEO of a ginormous company. He's worth hundreds of millions, if not close to $1 billion. And he is one of the most phenomenal human beings on planet Earth. He's amazing. Amazing. Lives out in California, and he's amazing. And my buddy Brian says, dude, so he has a buddy that was watching a video of Ed Milet's, and he said, I saw a book laying in the background up on his bar, and the angle was so that he could pause the video, and he screen captured it, and then he zoomed way in on it, and this was the book. And they started talking about it, and they said all of Ed Milet's content is coming out of this book. Like everything he talks about on his videos, and it's out of this book. Wow. This book is out of this world. It's literally out. Pardon me?
I said, I'm going to buy that one too. Thank you.
Dude, this book will blow your freaking mind.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
You won't be able to stop reading it because you're going to go, oh my God, I know what I've been doing wrong. Like, it's
I'm going to have another one of those. For me, honestly, the one book that I recommend highly to everybody is usually How to Win Friends and Influence People. Because I certainly believe that relationships, communication, contact, understanding, emotional intelligence, that book, I listen to it probably every year, 2 times a year, read it, done book studies with it. Yeah. Phenomenal book for me.
It's amazing. Mm-hmm. Glenn, you're muted.
Who's next? Somebody else is going to give a book recommendation.
Probably the best thing to ever happen to this panel. Glenn was muted.
No.
I was going to say that, but I thought it would be mean.
No, it's better if it comes from me. Trust me. It hurts. It hurts a lot less to self-administer that line.
And honestly, if I could just give Ken a plug, for you guys out there watching this, I've gotten to know Ken. It's been a week. So I went out and bought his book, and I read his book. Phenomenal. I mean, to get to know this person and see what he's been through and what a great guy he is. I kept texting him. I'm like, dude, we share a brain. We like shared a childhood. Everything was like crazy. It was like he and I went through the same experiences, but you really understand what he's been through. And when he talks his shit, I mean, he is not lying. It's unless he's wrote it in the book, and then it's the truth.
Yeah.
It's honestly a great read. I would highly recommend it. I went and got it, and it was quick, and it was just really informative, and it's so inspiring too. I mean, it just shows you again, anybody can do it. You just put one foot in front of the other. You keep doing it. You figure it out. You don't wait till everything's perfect. You jump and you go for it. So, yeah.
Thanks, brother.
Pam, what about you and Christy? What are real big influential books in your lives?
Yeah, so mine was, I shared it earlier, was the Joseph Murphy book. Really, definitely, I mean, just a game changer for me. And
show it again.
What's up?
Show it again.
So it's The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. Okay. And I think there's actually several different covers for it now, but that's the title. So if you look it up on Amazon, you'll find it. I've read a lot of Eckhart Tolle too. I really appreciate a lot of his writing. I'm a big YouTube listener, so I like to listen to videos too, and I'll listen to like some Alan Watts. And actually you can listen to Joseph Murphy on YouTube also. There's quite a few videos out there. So those are some of my favorites.
Cool.
Wow. That's cool. Christy, what about you, darling?
You know, when you mentioned this, like all the books I've ever read went out of my mind.
So did you have to go look them up and see?
Well, I just got a new phone, so I was going to check my Audible list, but my password isn't working.
Oh, no.
But anyway, just a thought, one that I've really enjoyed is a book, Solve for Happy. Has anybody heard of that before? By Mo Gaddit, I think is how you say his name. Check it out. So Mo was
Can you say that again?
Solve for Happy.
Solve.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Solve for Happy.
Okay.
So Mo, he was a engineer for Google X, and just found that he was really unhappy in life. So he read books on happiness for about 10 years and decided that none of them were efficient. Like none of them helped him in any way. So he decided he needed to solve happiness as an engineer. So he actually came up with a how do you say it? A mathematical, like an equation for happiness. Sure. And so we would have to pull that up. Maybe I can post it in a link so you can see it. But basically what he was saying is that when you have an expectation and life meets your expectation, you're happy. And when you have an expectation and life doesn't meet your expectation, you're not happy or you suffer. I mean, it makes sense, right? It doesn't seem like you need an engineer to figure that out. But so he looked at all the times in his life where he had an expectation and things worked out and he felt happy. And all the times he had an expectation and it didn't work out and he felt unhappy. So he said, like, people will ask you, you know, do you see the glass half full or half empty? And he said, I look at the glass and I see the part that's half full and I say, I'm so grateful for that. And then I look at the part that's half empty and I ask myself, is there anything I can do about that? And if there is, I do it. And if there isn't, then I ask myself, can I accept that?
Well, that's the serenity prayer told via a glass, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And so, I mean, he gave an example of, say you're on an airplane and the airplane lands and then they say, oh, you have to stay on the airplane for 2 hours. Something's happened and you've got to be there. So, you look at the glass. I'm grateful that, we've landed, everything's great. Our flight went well. And now I'm on the airplane for 2 hours. I can be upset. So then is there anything I can do about it? No, I can't. Can I accept it? And he said, we save ourselves suffering because the only person that's suffering is ourselves in our own head.
That's so beautiful. Do you know who, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Do you know who Janice Stanfield is?
I've heard the name.
Very actively involved in the New Thought movement, musician, dear friend for many years, met her actually through Unity. And she has a song, and the song goes like this, and she uses it in her life, and I've taught it to all my students, that whenever things don't go the way she had hoped they would, she actually, and she'll do it in public, she'll start singing, and I'm going to sing it for you at this time. So let's say you walked in to buy a particular something at a store, and it turns out they're out of it. What she will say is, oh, well, there's nothing I can do about it now. Nothing I can do about it now. This is good. Nothing I can do. Nothing I can do. Nothing I can do about it now. And she does it all the time. And, it's interesting. She's trained people when they get a crappy diagnosis or something to go, oh, well, there's nothing I can do about it now. And it's very tricky. And when you get a whole room, like when we found out that the entertainment business was just going to be shut down, they've unplugged all sets. I just looked and went, oh, well, there's nothing I can do about it now. And it's amazing how quickly that can transform a frown into a smile. Yeah. Because it's a playful thing to realize that you really can't do anything about it. What you can do is you can do something about the manner in which you process it. And so if you're processing it with a song, all I know is it goes better, and it's a hell of a lot better than processing it with a drug, right? There's something really organic and healthy about that, but that's so true.
It's the power of letting go right there.
Indeed.
And raising your vibration.
Back to something you were talking about earlier, Christy, and it's one of my favorite questions. And this question was a game changer for me too. When something happens, we can always, when we first have this initial story in our head of, maybe it's going to be how terrible this is going to be because everything's shut down or whatever, we have the power to say, is it possible that there's another story? And then suddenly we have to consider whether the story we're telling ourselves is the only possible story, or is it possible that there's a different story? And if so, what might that story be? And so then we have the ability or the opportunity really to move into our imagination and to like kind of let go of this idea that we've convinced ourselves of. And I love that. And the other thing I wanted to just throw out there really quickly too is there's an amazing video called The End of Suffering by Eckhart Tolle that you can find on YouTube, and that is really powerful.
Can I share one more book?
Yeah. We
So-
weren't relegated to one.
No,
only one. So, well, this might even just be an idea, maybe not necessarily a book, but one of the things that I think is really powerful is children's books. So this is just one that I have out right now of what can you do with an idea. And so I love having children's books around because they're short. You can read them and they're to the point, but they're using your imagination and they're colorful. And so I'll find one and this has just been out for a while because just I'll walk by it and see, well, what can you do with an idea? Right? I don't even have to read the whole book. Just the cover alone is intriguing. But one of my favorite children's books, and I don't even know if it's available anymore, is a book called Goodnight Opus. And so I think we can find a lot of inspiration in children's books. And so I actually encourage people to use children's books as a tool as well, not only the books that we see for adults. But basically the idea of Goodnight Opus, and I've been looking for it because I actually just recommended it. I'm going to read it to a client when I meet with her next time, is really about dreaming, about Opus is like this platypus or something like that that's told to, go to bed and to read the same book every night. And he's like, and he has these big dreams and imagines himself like flying out the window. And it's all about imagination and following your dreams in a children's book.
Awesome. I'm going to actually get that for my son.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wrote it down.
I love that. And so I'm laughing because I was actually talking with someone earlier on a live about this book that keeps coming to my head, and it's a children's book. And it actually was a book that Grover was in. Okay. And so the title of this book was The Monster at the End of This Book.
Oh, we have that one. Yep.
If you're familiar with it, the whole story is, Grover by each page gets more scared and more scared about this terrible monster that's going to be at the end of the book. And of course, when you get to the end of the book, the terrible monster is Grover. And so, you realize he's just been creating this story in his own head the entire time. And I think it's the cutest little analogy for what we do sometimes as humans.
Here, in metaphysics, Pam, there is a term that they dare to say this, and it's a bold statement, but I agree with it wholeheartedly, that life can be expressed best with three letters, and they stand for, it's AEP is the letters AEP, and it stands for your already existing premise. That basically life is responding and out picturing, another word for manifestation, that your life is responding directly to your already existing premise. So basically, whatever your existing premise is, or I refer to it also as your chronic opinionitis about life, right? Whatever's going on in your noggin, with your overall opinion about life. But listen, I had a good old boy years ago sounded like this, and he said the most negative thing I've ever heard in my life. He said, Glenn, and he said my name in 2 syllables. He said, Glenn. He said, and I knew I liked him because you got to love somebody that takes 2 syllables to say a 1-syllable name. He said, hey, Glenn. Now I totally forgot what I was going to say.
I can't help you.
It was about chronic opinionitis.
I'll get back to
I don't know. We were all caught up in the accent too. I don't even know where it was going.
I'll get back to the story. It's okay.
Well, hey, I hate to be a party pooper, but I'm gonna.
We could go up for 3.5 hours.
It's
only
we've
like
been
2
3.5
a.m.
hours. It is 2:02 a.m. here, so I'm tapping out, y'all.
Okay, well, we've been on a long time.
Yeah, we served a good dish, like you said, Ken. I mean, 3.5 hours of all of us and everything we've said. I mean,
yeah.
Geez, if you guys out there in viewership land don't get value out of that and don't apply that, then we don't know what to tell you.
You know what?
Yeah.
Share it out too. Share it out would be really.
Share it.
Would be
And
really
can I
helpful.
put one more tip on there? Not only share it out, but go back and watch it again and take notes. Because when you listen to it a second time, you're going to hear different things that you didn't hear the first time.
That's right. That's right. Amen.
Well, Ken, get some rest, brother. You know that every one of these panels keeps growing and growing and growing and expanding and getting. I mean, it's just I get to be both a panelist and an attendee. That's the beautiful thing is we sit here, we get to experience it as an audience as well. So
amazing.
I'm so very grateful. I love you guys. And
Weldon said his head's going to
wrap it in saran wrap first. Wrap it in saran wrap first and make for a great joke for your friends.
Wow. So hey, I want to, send love and blessings and just a lot of positive, good energy to everyone on here that's watched this. Any replay viewers, if you made it this far in the replay, wow, you freaking rock!
Call me, you get a free coaching session for making it this far.
Unbelievable. So, I just want to send out a lot of positive energy and blessings and prayer to anyone that's suffering right now. And I'll leave you with this from my perspective. The Buddhists have a saying, and it goes like this: pain in life is absolutely inevitable. You're going to have pain. Suffering is optional. You get to decide how long you're going to suffer. So don't suffer. Reach out to us, reach out to friends, family, get out of yourself and go help somebody else out. Do a random act of kindness for someone else. I'm not saying go give them a hug right now. Just reach out and help somebody else, seriously. And that'll change your life, I promise you, if you do it enough. So
well said. Well
Glenn,
said.
anything you would like to add before
I'm as we say down here, I'm about as full as a tick on a hound dog.
Chris,
yeah, I want to echo what you said, Ken, and I also just want to give a shout out to all the men and women on the front lines. I know Angel's here. I hope she didn't take off right yet, but she and I had a great conversation last night. She's on the front lines delivering packages, and you got people working in the stores, you got people working in the hospitals. I saw a very emotional video yesterday. I'm sure maybe you guys have seen it before. Also, it's the nurse that's talking about she's been swapping from emergency room to emergency room. She has one mask that she's supposed to use. I saw Angel posted earlier. She has her FedEx uniform outside because she can't take it inside. I say thank you to all the men and women, all the truck drivers, everybody who's out there keeping things going in harm's way, doing without, staying, away from your family. Our hearts go to you, and we just simply thank you from the bottom of our hearts and our souls for everything that you're doing for us and keeping things going and doing that. So I just wanted to say that. And thank you to all you guys out there and you guys here on the panel. Like Glenn just said, it's so amazing. I'm sitting here going I pinch myself. I'm part of this, but I would be sitting here taking down notes the whole time too. So just want to say thank you and much love to you guys all.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Love that. And I would love to throw out there, if I can, that on Sunday, I'm actually going to do a tapping event for any of the healthcare workers that are out there on the front lines. They can come in, it's free. And I'm going to try to get to as many of, the issues as we can. But, I'm going to do these ongoing. So that's just an invitation. I will have that event posted out on my page. I don't think it's visible on there yet, but I will have it out there. So if you are on the front lines, please come to that. I would love to have you there.
Pamela Aubrey. You didn't put your whole name in when you came in, so people are asking what.
No, I didn't. Yes,
Pamela
that's correct.
Aubrey, Aubrey, Pamela.
And tag me in that, Pam, because I know some people that could use that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I shared it. I shared her event yesterday, I believe. Definitely, you want to be at that if you can make it for sure. So,
and
Chris, any final words? Sorry, go ahead, Glenn.
I was just going to say, I lied. I did have a closing remark, which is I want to give a plug for The Resident. We are in a rerun next week because we had a truncated season courtesy of the virus. And then what was not originally scheduled to be the finale will be airing on Tuesday, April 7th. And I will be back in that episode. So that's whatever it is, about 11 days from tonight, April the 7th, and it's a powerhouse episode. And I wanted to say that Dr. David Hawkins, to me, gave us the best summation of life I've ever heard. He said that every thought and every action does one of two things. It either contributes or it contaminates.
Yeah.
And it's so easy because they're both C words. In fact, they're both CON words. So every thought and every action we take, it either contributes or it contaminates. And if we divide it up, if we were just kind of to divide our life in half on a piece of paper and look at the choices we make and then evaluate it honestly, you don't need to do this for anyone else. Just do it between you and put your honest evaluation next to it and say, is that a contribution to my life or a contaminant? And run it down. And if you come up with a lot of contaminants, you'll now understand why you're not happy. You'll understand that, because if your life is loaded with contaminants, it's swimming upstream. But if not only do you begin contamination reduction, not only is that a healthy choice, but contamination replacement is even better. So I think it begins with contamination reduction. But if you can graduate, and certainly you can, so we use the language since you can, not if you could, but since you can, the next level up the ladder is to actually realize, okay, for every contaminant that currently exists in my life, I'm going to slide it out of my life. I'm going to replace it with a contribution. And then in no time at all, you have actually transformed who it is you are.
Wow. That is awesome.
You're up.
Okay, so since we're in a time where we're not getting a lot of hugs, if you take one hand and put it on the side and one hand and put it on this side, and putting your hands here is like getting a hug. Can you put it on the screen so we can all be there so we can do this together? Or else I'm just looking at myself. It seems a little weird when I just do it by myself.
Pam, hug yourself.
Here and literally just squeeze. And I'm going to just count to 5. Just squeeze. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let go. Now, can we do it one more time? And as you're doing this, you could say whatever you want to say, but as you're squeezing, you maybe repeat after me. Let's try that. I haven't tried it with repeating, but if you squeeze here and say, I am valuable.
I am
valuable.
Yes.
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 I am loved.
I am
Yes.
I am
loved.
loved.
I make a difference. Yes.
I make a difference.
And then let go. And just notice, how do you feel?
Ready for a nap.
Does it feel a little bit,
Warm,
right? You know
warm
what I
and
mean? It's
calm,
the
yeah.
same thing. Even just putting your hands here and squeezing a little bit, you're literally, you're crossing left and right, but you're giving yourself a hug. So
Feels good.
Love
Yeah.
that.
Very much needed right now, especially.
Yeah. Awesome. Everybody have an awesome night, day. We have someone from China, Dennis. Dennis said that he is in China and he's in the future, and the future looks great, he says.
Oh, he's off of the respirator. That's great news. I know Ruben, Chris, that I know Ruben as well.
Yep.
Oh, that is wonderful news. If he's
It's amazing. When I heard about him being in there, I was like, wow, that's amazing. The guy's a stud. Health stud, buff, takes care of himself. I mean, when I heard that, I was like, no way.
Right.
That's awesome. He's off the respirator. That's huge.
I'm going to go eat dinner. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Kick ass and unstoppable.
Thank you all for watching and sharing.